So after what seems like forever, at the very least 5 years, the next series from the creator of Naruto is finally coming, Samurai 8. We actually got a little preview teaser of the manga. It was about 3 pages more or less, giving us a little insight on what it's going to be about. And we also had a trailer back in December of 2018 giving us an idea, but there was a lot of controversy leading up until this series. Honestly, if Masashi Kishimoto, the creator of Naruto, wanted to build up anticipation over the course of many years, he succeeded, because he's made a lot of statements throughout the years, and there's just been so much to talk about when it comes to Samurai 8, the next series from the creator of Naruto. Let's talk about it.
Whether Facebook, Twitter, or the two, make sure to steer clear, cause I'm coming through like...
Now, you're probably thinking the next series from the creator of Naruto. In case you're uninformed, he is not the one that's doing the Boruto manga. I believe he supervises it at best, just kind of says yay, nay about it, but that's actually being penned and illustrated by totally different people. I mean, they have his blessing. The guy that's actually mainly in charge was one of the people that was working on the Naruto manga since chapter 7, so it's in good hands, and that's why the Boruto manga lately has been a lot better, because I think now he's been able to do what he wants and whatnot. But the author of Naruto hasn't done anything himself, a full-blown story, since Naruto. Now, there's been a lot of speculation as to what was going to happen. I remember many years ago, there was an interview that came out, probably 2015, late 2015, where the author of Naruto said that it was actually going to debut in a like quarterly release, a Shonen Jump app, stuff like that. So there must have been some production issues. Something must have happened along the way why it took so long to come out, because I remember clearly it was said that it wasn't even going to be in Shonen Jump because Kishimoto didn't want to do any more Shonen Jump Weekly stuff. I mean, the amount of work that it takes to be an artist and author in Shonen Jump is ridiculous, especially after doing it for 15 years, 20 years, however long he was doing it with Naruto. He's probably not going to want to go back to it. So the fact is, Samurai 8 is actually written by the author of Naruto, but illustrated by a different person. And I understand now why. Probably whatever was happening in those intermediate years with that Shonen Jump app, that they were launching a different app. It was supposed to be like a quarterly magazine or whatnot. Probably things fell through, and Kishimoto was probably like, yo, I told you, I'm not ever going back to that life again of just sitting in an office all day. So probably what happened, either he wrote the entirety of it and they're releasing it in small doses, or it's truly a weekly, but the author of Naruto is just writing it, so that way he don't have to be destroying his body, which is what a mangaka does. Now, again, we're going to talk about the plot in a second based on what I've seen, and let's talk about the press release, because this is a really drummed up thing. They have a whole big thing. There's a picture of the main character as well as Naruto, and again, there was a trailer that was released in December that was real hype and everything, showing that this is a seemingly samurai sci-fi series, which it's absolutely a crazy combination. But let's read the press release first before we go to the preview we got. The official Twitter account for Viz Media's Shonen Jump website announced on Thursday that it will publish the preview chapter for the new Samurai 8, The Tale of Hachimaru, Samurai 8 Hachimaru-den, manga by Naruto manga creator Masashi Kishimoto and manga artist Akira Okubo. The chapter will be available on the site on Friday at 4 p.m., which I got to check it out. The chapter will debut in Jump in the combined 22nd and 23rd issues of Weekly Shonen Jump on Saturday. The preview will be 4 pages long. Again, we know all this because we're going to talk about it. Shueisha stated that the combined 22nd and 23rd issues on April 27th will be the final issue in Japan's Heisei era. The Samurai 8 Hachimaru-den will be the first new serialization in Weekly Shonen Jump in the new Reiwa era. So that means that this is a big deal. Like, I could see that no matter what, this ain't getting canceled. No matter what, this is getting pushed because they believe very heavily in Masashi Kishimoto's pen. That's what this is telling me immediately. The fact that they're saying like, yo, the old era of Jump is done. We're in this Reiwa era. This is the first series that we're launching with it. I expect this to be around for a while, unless it's already completed and Kishimoto's just letting it go out there. But if they got an artist on board, it's probably because it's going to be around for a while. The magazine did not reveal the specific premiere date for the full serialization, but the first issue in the Reiwa era will be the 24th issue on May 13th. So yeah, I believe it's actually going to be premiering in the May 13th issue. You know, with leaks and stuff like that, we'll probably have it by like May 10th, but Yeah, that's a freaking huge deal, man. Masashi Kishimoto. Kishimoto's in charge of the original work, and Okubo is drawing the manga. Okubo is a former assistant to Kishimoto, also another one of his assistants. It seems as though Kishimoto keeps his people close. Shueisha had revealed at the Jump Festa 2019 event in December that the manga will launch in Weekly Shonen Jump this spring. During the event, Naruto voice actress Junko Takeuchi read a comment from Kishimoto, which stated that the new manga will combine his love for Japanese culture and clothing and science fiction, which based on the preview that I got a chance to check out, it seems to be the case. Now, it was real weird because the chapter starts off, it kind of reminded me, to be honest with you, if anybody is familiar, it gave me a feeling of the beginning of Magi with a whole different twist. And what I mean by that is, it's about 3 or 4 pages where this one character, he seems like he's very weak. I don't know if his body is destroyed or something. And that's where the science fiction aspect comes from, because it looks like he's hooked up to some machine. And this character is talking to somebody and they say, hey, make a wish on a wishing star and you can get your wish come true. And the main character just starts blurting out like 1,000 wishes. Like, I wish I didn't need all these allergy medicines. I wish my arms worked. I wish a lot of different things. So it seems as though this character is probably like partially human or robot or fully robotic. Maybe he's just a full robot. I don't know. Also something about a dog in there. And then in the end, he says, but above all, my main wish that I want so badly is to become a samurai. So it seems as though maybe he's a robot and he's a poorly put together robot and he wants to be a samurai. I'm not sure. It freaking looks like it's going to be one hell of a new idea and twist. I think Kishimoto, when he came up with this idea, I think he was probably working on Naruto when he came up with this, because also the author of One Piece said once he's done with One Piece, he's working on a mech series. Probably the creator of Naruto. Again, he had this idea when he was doing it, and now he's finally being able to execute it. The art looks pretty cool. Main character, honestly, I'm not too thrilled by him. He does come across to me as like a Tsunayoshi Sawada, a la Hitman Reborn, minus all the cool stuff. Like, he seems like a kind of dweeb, dorky kind of character, but again, if it's mixed with sci-fi, like robots and stuff, which kind of reminds me of that new manga that I talked about not that long ago, The Last Sayuki. Kind of reminded me of something like that, based on all these wishes that this character was trying to make because he's such a broken down person. I don't know, but I know that it got my interest. I know that this is going to be around for a while. This will probably be one of the big dogs. Whatever is about to happen in Shonen Jump, because what they do usually is these purges and they kind of clean house. Maybe they're gonna about to clean house soon, and a lot of the big guns is gonna go that we have now. So who knows? Maybe Black Clover, as much as I love it, maybe they're gonna clean house. I don't know. Maybe they're gonna get rid of My Hero. I don't know. But they're banking on this very big, a la the press release, that this is the first release of the Reiwa era. It's been drummed up for many years. It again makes me just curious as to why it took so long. Is it because Kishimoto just didn't want to work on it right away? He did say that he was going to take a vacation, but he was talking about this manga as far back as I can remember, since 2015 at the very least, that this was released, that he was working on it. And again, with all the production issues, the fact that it's going to be in Weekly Jump, I'm imagining that this could be some really good stuff, because now Kishimoto, a seasoned vet at how to do plot twists and stuff like that, did this for 15 years. Now all he has to worry about is writing a good story. He's probably giving like basic character designs, because again, in the cover page you see like Naruto summoned this character, and honestly the art in the trailer in December, it looked like Kishimoto's. In the preview thing, it didn't look too much Kishimoto-ish, but I think we're going to see a lot of different elements, because in the trailer that we saw in December, there was like stuff that looked like, I don't even know, like Susanoo's, all sorts of crazy shit, samurai armor. And if this character wants to be a samurai, then maybe it's going to be like a dweeb that's like a robot with this science fiction thing, mixing it with, again, the samurai era. It's going to be one hell of a twist. Honestly, I don't know. I'm really excited about this. This is the first time I'm, in my memory since I've been doing this, that a major author, because you know Naruto was a major player, still is a major player, Boruto's still going, and he's coming back with a new work as his old work still isn't really even over. Boruto, he's still supervising that, but it's a great thing that he's only writing it. I wish a lot more authors, I wish, minus Tite Kubo, because honestly, Tite Kubo from Bleach, I want him to draw his shit too. His art is really good. Not that Kishimoto's ain't good, but Tite Kubo is the exception. Like, I wouldn't mind him coming back and being full blown, or at the very least giving the basic character designs for stuff. But they need to do more of this. This sounds like a great idea. I am absolutely going to talk about chapter 1 when it fully drops. From the preview, seems okay. I'm not too thrilled about the main character, but there'll probably be some badasses surrounding him if this is some mech meet samurai crazy twist, something like that. This could be an incredible thing. Kishimoto knows how to write. Now all he has to worry about is writing. I'm on board for that. I can't freaking wait for this one. Again, Samurai 8. It premieres in the May 13th issue of Shonen Jump. So May 10th to May 13th. Check back for when the chapter drops. I'm going to absolutely talk about it. And it seems like this is going to be around for a while. Shonen Jump is investing heavily. If this is a Kishimoto thing, you got to think they probably had to pay Kishi a lot to come back. And if they're working in this capacity to the point where they're allowing him to just write and he has an illustrator, this is going to be a crazy thing. And so far from what we got, it seems like this is something different. This doesn't seem like the typical boy's journey. Like, it does in a way a boy's journey of like this little crippled robot kid wanting to become a samurai, but it's just like a whole different twist. It's not just like a normal boy like a Gon or Naruto or Luffy. I don't know what's going to happen with this, but I'm really freaking excited. I'm curious what you guys think about this, though. For starters, based on the preview chapter with 4 pages of this little robot that's all messed up, or I'm assuming he's a robot, maybe he's a real guy or something like that, and that's why with all these allergies, it would also make sense. Maybe he's just a really messed up human being. Maybe he was just born like that, so there's that possibility there. Do you think that this is going to be a really banging series? Honestly, I'm going to put my faith in Kishimoto. I love Naruto. I do. I love the one shot he did of Mario. So it's not just Naruto itself. This guy can write. Do you think it's going to be as good? He made headlines years ago when he said he's going to make this series even bigger and better than Naruto. It's time to see if he can fill those shoes and make good with that promise. And your overall thoughts and expectations for this series? I see it being around for a while unless it's a secret one-shot type of deal where it's like 40 chapters already made. But with an artist on board, this is going to be around for a while, and I'm looking forward to it. So the long-awaited new series from the creator of Naruto is here. Samurai 8, The Tale of Hachimaru, Chapter 1. And I'm going to be honest with you, I have not seen quite a mixed bag of people talking on a brand new series that is of this magnitude, probably since I started, because wow, I'm not gonna lie, people right now are very, very mixed on this one, and there's just so much to say because this being the next series, you know, because at the end of the day, Boruto is not handled by Kishimoto. To my understanding, he just supervises that. So this is the next thing that Kishimoto has truly worked on since chapter 700 of Naruto. Or, I guess there was a spring manga or whatever, and the little one-shots and stuff like that. But serialized, this is the first, and yeah, a lot of different opinions. Let's talk about it. Is it legendary? Or, boy, we off to a bad start. Okay, so the way that opens up is very interesting. It opens up with a character that appears to... He has the appearance of the Sage of Six Paths at the very least. And he's in some sort of temple. And he's talking to some sort of samurai-looking character. The art on that particular character, the one that was like kind of... giving, I guess, a speech or whatnot, kind of looked like a character from Bleach. It looked like a mixture of like a Tozen with something else. I can't really put my finger on it, but really, really appreciated the opening color pages for this series, because obviously, you know, that's going to be a big deal. If this series is a long laster, if this series becomes the next big thing, everyone's going to be looking back at these pages, you know, and saying, okay, so this is where it all began. Now, as we talked about in some of the previous videos, in case you don't know the synopsis of this whole thing, is basically a character. He's a kind of disabled, robotic type of character, and he wants to become a samurai, but his father seemingly is teaching him some values and stuff like that. And there's a lot of interesting bits in this. Honestly, this chapter was loaded with a lot of content, and for better or worse, because I've seen some people say that they absolutely hated it. This is off to a bad start. It was overpacked. Some people say, wow, this is great. There's a very, very big mix, and it's not one-sided on either way, at the very least from what I've seen, of like a unanimous decision on whether or not this was a great first chapter. I'll tell you one thing, to kind of just jump over everything. I will say for a first chapter, it is very, or better yet, vastly different from the shonen from the past that we've got. And I feel as though My Hero Academia, Black Clover, and those series in particular were some of the last that were modeling themselves of the old way. Because this series, it's a science fiction mixture with like samurai action shonen, and it's not simplistic by any means. If Naruto, Hunter x Hunter, One Piece, Bleach all had simplistic, very easy to digest first chapters, this one kind of went the exact opposite. Honestly, I would argue, my opinion, based off what I saw with this first chapter, this series probably would have benefited from not being in Shonen Jump. Maybe a weekly magazine, but not Shonen Jump. And what I mean by that is this would have benefited from being a seinen series, because it seems as though there's a lot of content to digest, and that's probably one of the reasons why a lot of people already got lost with this first chapter, because there was a lot. It was very busy, but that's not to its detriment either. Honestly, I can't say that, oh, having a lot of context and, you know, immediately fast forwarding, because it seems as though this chapter was packed with a lot of the tropes that you would get. Like, I mean, for crying out loud, the cat, warrior, samurai, robot. It seems as though Kishimoto wanted to just kind of get past everything that you would expect for the first, like, 30 to 50 to 100 chapters of a shonen to get to his story, in a sense. So that's something that's very interesting, because that means that the pacing needs to be consistent to a point where it's like, okay, are we going to continue the way this was going, very quick like that, a lot of information? Is it going to slow down now? Or was that just Kishimoto really trying to start off with a big bang? Let's talk about the character designs. Some people were very, very disappointed with it. Again, mixed reactions. I personally can definitely see where the complaints are coming from, because some people are saying that, holy cow, the character designs are way too Naruto-like. Again, this is not drawn by Masashi Kishimoto, but the character designs, I'm imagining for everything, he gives like the rough idea of what it's going to look like, and then passes it on to the person that's drawing it, because it's clear as day between the samurai that had that final battle with Hachimaru. He looked straight up like QB Chakra Mode Naruto. Can't deny that. There was a lot of characters. I mean, the video game character that Hachimaru was using looked like a mixture of Hokage Naruto with like a scar of like Zoro from One Piece. So very, very reminiscent of the designs of Naruto, but it's cool that at the very least he's having another artist do it, because Hachimaru, despite some of the similarities, because again, there's just so much to talk about, to like some of the ideas and concepts from Naruto, Hachimaru doesn't look, in particular, in my opinion, like a straight up Naruto character design. And I feel as though there was so much thematic expression of what this series means to Masashi Kishimoto in general, his career, his legacy, and many different aspects, because between just looking at the battle pieces, there was just a lot of depth, and I felt as though while I was reading this, I was trying to almost understand, well, where is this man at in his life? And that's where I like to look at certain aspects of series. Maybe it's a different perspective, maybe you don't like this perspective, but nevertheless, it's mine. I look at it as, okay, so is he trying to tell a story in terms of his career? Because some of the similarities that I would compare it to, in a sense of like, okay, where is this in Masashi Kishimoto's life? If you look at it, in Naruto, towards the end, we did see Madara, right? And old Madara had those mechanics hooked up to the back, and he was stuck to that machine. They reused that design for the beginning when Hachimaru is strapped up to the big machine that his father had him stuck to, and, you know, he wasn't allowed to leave. It's very thematic, again, even of what's going on in society now. A lot of kids that they'll just stay in their room all day playing video games. Maybe they're sick, maybe they have a disability, and they're just in this VR world playing video games all day. So it was very reminiscent of that. But also, if you look at it from in terms of where Masashi Kishimoto's life is at, from going to what he probably felt, from what I hear most mangaka feel, like they're stuck, like they're slaves to the machine in a sense. So what Hachimaru starts off is almost as if, in a way, Kishimoto passed it down, and Hachimaru is starting off from where Kishimoto left off, in terms of if Kishimoto was represented by Madara being stuck to that machine, it could be metaphoric that now either the artist and him are stuck to this machine, or this is a new day, a new age, and even though he was stuck to the machine back then, he's a little bit more loose now, because, you know, obviously after a certain point, he gets disconnected from the machines, and then seppuku, like, I couldn't even break this down. Like, if I had to break this down to somebody that has no idea about anime and manga tropes or whatever, they would look at me like, that's not for me, because it definitely is loaded with science fiction, but it's fascinating to me. Honestly, I would say for the new era, if this is what Shonen Jump is heading towards, I like it. I like it, and I'm not saying any bias, because again, there were some things that you could argue are issues. Maybe it was a bit too complex. Maybe it was too hard for somebody, which again, this is why I say this should not be in Shonen Jump. This should be in some type of seinen magazine, because it's going to be a little too hard for kids these days to really digest it. But I'll be honest with you, whether the Shonen Jump rankings have an effect or not, because, you know, there's always back and forth about, no, that's nothing, that's just the order of the magazine, whatever. Votes-wise, this series, no matter how it does, votes-wise, they're pushing this. This is absolutely getting an anime, 100%. I could tell that, depending on what studio they go with, please no Peria. Oh God, no Peria, please. Okay, we had them, you know, what they did with Naruto Shippuden, what they did with Boruto, Black Clover, Tokyo Ghoul. Enough. I really hope that this gets a very high quality treatment, which seems to be where Shonen Jump and Shueisha is headed, because at the end of the day, and those are aesthetics, you know, aside from the story at hand that we have right here with the first chapter. But I'm just thinking long term of, I know this is going to be around for a while. I bet my bottom dollar they paid this man a lot of money to come back and create this, regardless if he's just writing and somebody's doing the art, which we got to acknowledge too, the artist, because this is a multi talented package. This isn't just one person. This is supposedly two people working on this. So I definitely want to give credit where it's due. The action pieces from the beginning, we have what feels like a giant Naruto battle. Very nicely done. The art, again, maybe a bit too busy at times, but my gosh, from the cybernetic stuff where the guy's face comes out, which it does feel a little bit, I'm not gonna lie, aesthetics wise, not plot-wise or anything like, well, maybe you could argue plot-wise too, but just the aesthetics, like certain elements, does give me some fairy tale vibes, and that's not a good sign. I'll be honest with you. The one character in the beginning where he had, like, he looks kind of like Guild Arts with the cybernetic face, so that kind of gave me that feeling. Also, the whole plot of trying to collect these 7 keys, this whole samurai world, the 7 keys that they're trying to collect, it does give me a little fairy tale vibe there. Maybe the artist was inspired by fairy tale. Again, this is a collaboration between 2 people, so I'm imagining it's not 100% what Masashi Kishimoto wants with everything, especially if the artist is drawing it and giving some ideas here and there. But I ain't gonna lie, this first chapter, if I was to just put it straight up, I really was fascinated that they allowed this guy to do this. And if this is a sign of where we're headed with the next generation of Shonen Jump, I think Shonen Jump is about to get a lot more mature and advanced. Again, it still had a lot of elements of stuff because, which it was dark, I'm not gonna lie. Like, Hachimaru committing seppuku in the end to save his father. Again, if this was a seinen magazine, it would have been even darker, but that alone was like, whoa, you know, we're heading up I don't want to say mature, because it's not like violence is a great description of maturity in any form, or a good one for that matter, but it definitely showcases a change in the times. This is the first series in this new era in Japan in general. So if they're going up this route, depending on the success of this, we could see where Shonen Jump heads altogether, because this is something totally different from what Shonen Jump has established up until this point. Again, it's science fiction, and maybe I'm not that adverse in the field of science fiction manga, especially from Shonen Jump, but I know enough to say that this isn't anything like, especially what you would expect from Masashi Kishimoto. It doesn't feel 100% like, oh, okay, this is just a standard shonen series. And I mean, with everything that happened in chapter 1, I'll definitely say one thing: the QB chakra mode, Naruto looking samurai that was hunting down that key, and you know, that Hachimaru went up against, I'll say right now, I'm willing to bet he's gonna come back. I don't know if he'll be like more of a Vegeta type of character, but I could bet my bottom dollar I could see him somehow returning. It just seems as though there was a reason why he was a part of this first chapter. It could just be that he's a throwaway character, but I don't know, especially that's Masashi Kishimoto's like favorite character design, Naruto, I'd imagine, right? One of them. So that character will probably be returning. But for a first chapter, the events leading up onto it, again, a lot of context to digest, a lot of story, a lot of plot. But I felt as though it was very powerful. It was very interesting to see a little bit of a twist. If you're going into this one expecting, oh, it's going to be a Naruto clone, you'll be a bit, disappointed if that's what you want, or if that's what you're coming in immediately trying to criticize. Because one, Naruto was with no parents in the beginning, he was an orphan essentially. Hachimaru, father in his life there, so that's one big change already from that plot. Another thing, I would argue, if there was something that I was a bit disappointed with this thing, and I know I'm jumping off from, hey, the comparisons to Naruto, but just hear me out. If I would say one disappointment, it would probably be that I would have rathered Hachimaru stayed that kind of disabled type of robotic character that he was in the beginning, opposed to after he tried to commit seppuku and, turned into this freaking Astro Boy, essentially, which this could be what they're trying to do, promote the next generation of Astro Boy. Maybe this is what, well, it's definitely influenced. I could see all the influence in it. Maybe that's what they're trying to do. Like, this is the first manga of this new generation. This is going to be the Astro Boy, essentially, for Shonen Jump. So maybe that's what they're trying to do. But I didn't like that. It just kind of took what could have been something really interesting to see. Again, this disabled robotic kid, Hachimaru, overcome adversity. And now, I don't know exactly where we're headed. It kind of set up so many different breadcrumbs for things that is like, yo, this could be great foreshadowing for down the road. And then it just handles it very quickly. Again, the samurai cat thingy being the instructor and whatnot. It's just a lot of cool stuff. Honestly, this was a great first chapter. I feel as though this is going to be something unique at the very least. And I know that people are going to have, because again, there's going to be the criticism. I've seen it, but I could at the very least say I thought this was fascinating for a first chapter, and I can't believe I'm using that word, but I describe it as fascinating that this is a Shonen Jump thing, and this could be, again, the direction where Shonen Jump is headed, going into a more mature, more advanced, more seinen feeling, adult feeling storytelling at the very least for Shonen Jump. Or it could just be a fluke. It could just be because Masashi Kishimoto is so trusted with what he did with Naruto that they're like, yo, if Akira Toriyama could go from Dr. Slump to creating Dragon Ball, the biggest thing out there, we can try and do that with him. Naruto could be Masashi Kishimoto's Dr. Slump. Samurai 8 could be his Dragon Ball. That'd be freaking crazy. But I'm kind of curious what a lot of you guys thought of the first chapter of Samurai 8, The Tale of Hachimaru. Did you think that this was a strong first chapter, especially that there's a lot of marketing behind this? This is very important to this magazine and all of this stuff. This is going to be around for a while. Did it blow you away? Was it too much for you? Was it too complex? Because it was very, very busy. And what did you think about the plot so far? The characters that we have. We got Hachimaru. We have this whole samurai theme. We have these reincarnations. A lot of really interesting concepts that, honestly, it's reminiscent of stuff that we saw in different parts of Naruto. So you can see he has influence from his previous series, which most authors at this point, that seems to be par for the course when they start up a new one. But damn, it feels like this could be a whole different direction. I'm starting to wonder how far in to Samurai 8 are we going to be saying, you know what? It would be wrong at this point to almost compare it to Naruto, because this could head in a whole different direction than what we've had with Shonen Jump Battle Series thus far, and I'm really looking forward to it. I'm not gonna lie. I hope that they tone down on making Hachimaru this crazy freaking strong being. It's like, yo, we got 6 keys to collect. We already got 1 in the very first long chapter, which long, but again, a lot to digest, and I enjoyed it. And yo, bro, thoughts and expectations for the future of Samurai 8. This is going to be one series that I'm going to give it a test. If you guys ain't rocking with it after a few chapters, maybe I'll put it down. I really like it so far, though. I'm looking forward to talking about it more, and I'm looking forward to seeing if Masashi Kishimoto can truly do what he set out to, and that's create something that surpasses Naruto. Naruto was huge, still is huge in the US worldwide. It's like, in my books, only a couple notches, maybe 1 or 2 behind Dragon Ball in terms of popularity. Let's see if Samurai 8 can do that. Freaking crazy. I really liked it. Is it just me, or does it seem as though Samurai 8 is giving major clues and basically foreshadowing, in a sense, of what's going to happen in the end of the Naruto / Boruto verse? I think we might have something here, people, and it's crazy. You would have never thought, but Samurai 8, for people sleeping, if you sleeping on Samurai 8, it's time to wake up. And we're only 2 chapters in, baby, but I promise you right now, I'm not overhyping it, because the old me would have said this was boring, okay? This is for the select few that are really grasping the concepts and the ideals and stuff like that we're already getting. But man, that Naruto Boruto verse thing, if I ain't catch your attention, yeah, Samurai 8, it's bringing that heat, baby. And if you want to know or get a little insight, yeah, stay tuned. I'm about to talk about it.
Whether Facebook, Twitter, or the two, make sure to steer clear, cause I'm coming through like...
So Samurai 8 Chapter 2, in Masashi Kishimoto's seemingly quest to break away from the mold, despite having certain elements of the boy's journey, there's elements all throughout it that clearly indicate otherwise. Definitely Samurai 8, in my opinion thus far, is a seinen series disguised as a shonen. Now, if you're not familiar with the two terms, shonen means for like boys. So seinen magazines are usually aimed at an older demographic and have more violence and stuff like that, and more mature themes. Shonen, they have the themes there, but everything is very basic and stuff like that. This one is probably going to be masked with, not necessarily, you're not going to get like Berserk which, who knows, maybe, Gon went pretty wild in Hunter x Hunter. So you're not going to get berserk per se, but you're going to get the mature elements of it. So the chapter opens up with Hachimaru stretching, right, which showcases that he's awake from a sleep, a nap, so to speak. And Masashi Kishimoto, you think about it, this is a reflection of his life right now. I think this is a reflection of what happened with him since the ending of Naruto. A lot of elements in this chapter, the second chapter, definitely showcased that Masashi Kishimoto really is on a self-discovery, in a sense, a journey of self-discovery, and has been since the ending of Naruto. Just take a look of the way the manga has been intertwined with some of the life events of his. For example, again, with chapter 1, you see that Hachimaru was connected to this machine, and he was liberated once he committed seppuku, and eventually now he's, mobile, so to speak. Similar to the interview where he basically said that writing manga and doing manga on a weekly basis the way he was doing it just is impossible. Basically states that now that he has this person drawing it, he feels like he's back in the game, so to speak, but now he's not connected like a slave to wires, in a sense. So definitely very introspective. That's a very deep thing to grasp, honestly, and that's why, again, I say Samurai 8 isn't for just everybody. Samurai 8, a lot of people aren't going to immediately gravitate towards it until we get some of the bigger action pieces, and that's when people will start, word of mouth or whatever. So Samurai 8, I'm glad I'm on this journey early on because I can see what we're going with. But back to it, seeing him being able to use these fake swords, skipping over the boy's journey, again, that's why I say that this series, it's almost, you could argue, yeah, it is indeed the spiritual successor to Naruto. Boruto, even though Boruto is ongoing in a sense, it's kind of at this point, its own thing in a way, because, like, Shippuden ended the story in a sense of what Naruto began with, and that was this boy chasing after this dream. Boruto at this point is just living within the dream. Now you're probably at this point like, yo, Fornev, are you gonna get to it? What is it about the Boruto verse, the Naruto verse? What's happening? What's going on? So, go back to the beginning of Boruto. The beginning of Boruto, chapter 1, episode 1. Kawaki and Boruto are fighting and clashing, and the dialogue that we get is there's a big conflict in ideals. Pretty much Kawaki says the samurai era is here, the era of shinobi is over, and Boruto is saying like, yo, why did you do all of this? And he's basically about to collide. Look what Samurai 8 is. Just look at the name, Samurai. This is a samurai story, right? So immediately, if we're going to put it into context, if this is going to be connected, and the world at this point in the Naruto universe is samurai based, then that means that Kawaki's ideals won, which also goes back into the whole thing that it makes you wonder, who's really the villain in the Boruto story at that point? Maybe we have been tricked, I guess, and it's a misconception in a sense of who's the true villain based on that first episode, because of course we're going to immediately champion behind Boruto, right? We're going to champion and say Boruto is going to be, hello, this is his story or whatever. But let's look into one of the things and themes, shall I say, of the Boruto story, and that's Naruto and Sasuke's ideologies clashing, in a sense that Sasuke is mainly saying that the heart of a shinobi never changes. So Boruto might be going down the same path that Sasuke went. And Boruto is following Sasuke, and Sasuke is his mentor. He's going to look into the history. He's going to know that Sasuke at some given point went rogue, so to speak. So Boruto might not even be necessarily a villain per se. He might be fighting, just thinking, no, our ideology needs to stand. The way of the shinobi can't end. Meanwhile, at the end of the day, if Samurai 8 is the future of that verse, then Kawaki wins. And Kawaki might not even be the bad guy, because if Kawaki is inspired by Naruto's heart and he's, influenced by him, maybe he might not go rogue at all. Maybe the shinobi world at some given point advances to the point where, no, samurai have completely taken over and Boruto doesn't want to accept it. Bam! I mean, even if you look at the chapter, the second chapter of Samurai 8, the character that was introduced, this female that she has a left and right hand, well, she's assumably a female. It seems as though Masashi Kishimoto actually even plays off what the audience is going to say when the character is initially introduced, because both hands are talking like, oh no, it's a girl, oh no, it's a guy, and that's kind of what the audience is going to think when they see a quote-unquote trap character in a manga. So very, very interesting how he's kind of playing around with, I guess, cliches per se in shonen anime and manga. And we get shots that are similar to like when Naruto is on top of Konoha and looking over the village and whatnot. We get some of that with Samurai 8 when Hachimaru ventures off with Hayotaro, which their relationship is like Mega Man and Rush all the way. But you see the city, right? And it looks again like Konoha, but remember, Konoha, right now in Boruto, there's Konoha and that city on the other side that we never get to see. This could possibly be a blend in a sense of both of them, because look at what the character, right? The new character that's introduced in this chapter, she is a VR gamer, second best in that video game that Hachimaru, the main character, plays, right? Second best. And her headset that she uses, which they both use it when they battle in the chapter, are Konoha headband VR headsets. And they're playing a game that the characters look like Naruto characters. So essentially, who knows? Maybe this manga, Samurai 8, they already are far past this. This is the distant future of the Naruto-verse, and the Naruto-verse already happened. So historically, maybe it's just adapted. Kind of like how Oda, Nobunaga, and them are in video games, stuff like that. Maybe it's just an adaptation in this world. So very interesting. But regardless of what, if this is any spoilers for the end of the Naruto Boruto verse, then that means Kawaki wins, the Samurai won, and possibly Boruto is on the wrong side of history. Or who knows, maybe it could symbolize that just because somebody's on the right side of history doesn't mean that they're correct. You know what I'm saying? So a lot of interesting themes and elements there. And I guess the only other thing to note is that the very first villains in Samurai 8 are these 3 man pigs. They're like absolute savages, and they're headed towards the new main character and Hachimaru, the main character. So we're going to see some battle there. But yeah, covering Samurai 8 as well as talking about where it goes into the Naruto verse and the Naruto story, or the end of the Boruto verse, shall I say. What do you guys think about that? Does this signify that Samurai 8 is essentially the future of the Boruto verse? What do you think about the Konoha VR headsets? There's just so many things to talk about. This is why I'm absolutely in love with Samurai 8, the manga thus far. I'm not overhyping it. I'm not overselling it. A lot of people might find this as boring. Those people, cool on you. Maybe you'll come back to it once it gets hype, so to speak. But for the chosen few that are really deep into this manga already, 2 chapters, we got some fire, baby. Kishimoto came back, and I think this is going to be different version in a sense, but the Hunter x Hunter to his Yu Yu Hakusho. If Yu Yu Hakusho was the bomb and that was Naruto, Naruto was the bomb, we might have the bomb with critical acclaim. Because Naruto, one thing that it was missing is the critical acclaim. Samurai 8 might blow up, be very popular, and get the critical acclaim. And that's where Masashi Kishimoto as a person will get the fulfillment that he's possibly looking for as an author and as a creator. Because artists, they're always searching for something, and they want that fulfillment, and they want, you know, I guess, the accolades to go with it in a sense, because it's just something that is like, you want to feel like I accomplished something. So I see that within Masashi Kishimoto, and yeah, just so many crazy things about Samurai 8. I'm really fascinated with it. And your overall thoughts and expectations for the future. How you think this new character is going to blend in with Hachimaru? Seems as though Hachimaru is advancing very quickly, and if we're in this robotic world where people are like kind of half robot or whatever, we might not need training in a sense, if you think about it. If we've already merged with cybernetics in this Samurai 8 manga universe, it's going to be interesting to see either way. 3 chapters in, and I gotta say, I mean, it's definitely due to his name. I mean, he did create one of the biggest manga in the world, Naruto. But man, seeing the divide in opinions on Samurai 8, The Tale of Hachimaru, 3 chapters in, very, very divided. And Chapter 3 definitely proved to me something that I suspected, or I don't want to say proved because I don't have proof, but at the very least it convinced me on something regarding the structure of Samurai 8 and why it is that a lot of people are getting lost with it and a lot of people are just not understanding, but also why it feels a little bit different for something that is in Shonen Jump. Let's talk about it.
Whether Facebook, Twitter, or the two, make sure to steer clear, cause I'm coming through like...
Okay, so chapter 3 of Samurai 8. Now at this point, there's 3 chapters, a lot of pages. I think the first one's like 70-some pages, so a lot of stuff up until this point. But with the third chapter, I'm seeing again what people are saying about it, because to be honest with you, this is a big deal. This is like supposed to be the Hunter x Hunter to his Yu Yu Hakusho regarding Masashi Kishimoto's career, so a lot of eyes on this. I'm looking at this one very closely, and I'm seeing a lot of the complaints. One of the complaints I'm seeing, again, going into chapter 3, is the fact that it feels as though the pacing just feels a little weird. And that's where it brings me to something that I've suspected was going to happen based on how I've seen Jump work with another artist in Shonen Jump. And that artist is, coincidentally, Yoshihiro Togashi, creator of Hunter x Hunter and Yu Yu Hakusho. Now, with Hunter x Hunter, Yoshihiro Togashi, from my understanding, the way he works on it is he goes away when he's on his hiatus, and while he's on his hiatus, he's actually working on it. He comes back, he gives enough chapters to Jump to release at least 1 or 2 more volumes, and then keeps it moving. So what he does is he writes and writes and writes, kind of has an idea of where it's going to stop at, you know, chapter parts, but he's more so writing without having that weekly pressure of, yo, you got to change it up, the fan base ain't liking it like this. He gets a little bit more leeway, especially that Hunter x Hunter has a cult following. Hunter x Hunter could go on break after break after break after break, and the fans don't stop, the sales don't stop, millions upon millions. Hunter x Hunter, people love Hunter x Hunter, right? But with that being said, Yoshihiro Togashi again gets to release the chapters and gets to hand them over to Jump in a big pile of, like, you know, 20-30 chapters, a big thing. And again, it probably makes the reading experience, like, because I remember when I read Hunter x Hunter, more enjoyable when you read it in chunks, just like another series like One Piece. It's more enjoyable, but also it feels as though it's more correct. And that's, I think, the problem with Samurai 8, is that Masashi Kishimoto, I don't think that he's writing these chapters and having an editor, you know, tweak much, because at this point he's established. So maybe he does have an editor, of course, but at the same time, it feels as though with these chapters, at the very least, that Masashi Kishimoto handed over a big majority of this work before it even hit the ground running. So it doesn't feel like it's structured according to traditionally how shonen manga, like, it just feels like a lot of things are happening. The structure is kind of confusing regarding, like, okay, chapter 3 opens up with the samurai fighting, and they're talking about one in particular can't draw their sword because there's some sort of bind lock on it, and then we go to what's going on with Hachimaru and now the newly named Nanashi, which I like that name. It means no name apparently, but Nanashi, the character, the female that can't decide if she's a woman or dude and talks with her left and right hands and whatnot, she also had that. So it's making me believe, to throw in there, because a lot of people that may be confused, and maybe I'm getting it wrong as well, it seems as though there's possibly an alternate reality happening, or that happened, regarding the powers of these people. I can almost bet my bottom dollar, because one of the things that people were complaining about as well is regarding, like, Nanashi seemingly not being a part of, like, the next chapter already, like, going away. And Nanashi needs to absolutely come back, and come back very quick. Like, it can't pass 10 chapters and Nanashi's not back yet, because at that point, I mean, I guess it can. It could be a long-term thing, like, you know, 20 arcs down the road, a big emperor comes and it's Nanashi. So it could be that could be the case. But as it stands right now, a lot of the fans of Backlash as well with chapter 3 is that they're looking at it as, wait a minute. So you introduced us to this weird character that's talking left and right and doesn't want to decide on and just, like, you know, a lot of people are just, like, odd that, like, this isn't Shonen Jump. So you introduce us, get us to kind of like the character, because I thought Nanashi was awesome, especially in this chapter where she was outright straight up like, yo, up front with feelings and grabbing Hachimaru's hand to help him with the sword to cut the tank in half. Like, yo, we got tanks getting cut in half, okay? Pig tank, like, just crazy, indescribable shit. I love science fiction. I ain't gonna lie, Samurai 8 is giving me an even deeper appreciation for science fiction. But again, it kind of felt like with Nanashi's departure, the fact that Hachimaru was like, well, yeah, you know, I'm going to space, I ain't coming back here and stuff like that. It almost felt like a Pokemon one-offer thing, like when Ash would meet these trainers on his journey that we're never going to see again, and it just felt a little bit bizarre. But again, I think that's attributed to the fact that when Kishimoto was writing this, maybe he had an idea in mind of, like, you know, it could break here and break there, but I think it's more so when people read this, like, that aren't reading it weekly, it'll be better to digest, because you'll get the answers a lot quicker than waiting a week to understand what the hell just happened. Like, the chapter opens up with these samurai, and it's been kind of counterpart as well with Hachimaru, which Hachimaru very, right now he's still playing the, hey, I'm the kid on a journey, but you can see that there's a lot of interesting things. He's more and more looking to me like he's less of a Naruto and more like a Gon Freaks. That's the vibe, especially with the samurai cat, what he was saying about him. That's the vibes that I'm getting right now. And quickly going back to Nanashi, I will say as well, I give credit that people, one of the things that they argue and complain about with shonen manga for years and years is that they spark a love interest and they make the female very shy or whatever, which it's not new because this has also been done before, but I like how outspoken and upfront, even though she's still internally struggling, Nanashi was with her feelings for Hachimaru. She's like, yo, bro, let's get married. What's good? You know what I'm saying? Now, it was a little bit generic. Hachimaru didn't understand it. At the end of the day, you gotta think about it. He was a kid that was trapped in his room, stuck to a machine for most of his life. So to him, it's like, huh? Underwear? What? Which, if you think about it, honestly, this chapter kind of gave me vibes a little bit of early Dragon Ball with like Oolong and stuff. I would say that maybe that was a little bit of the inspiration behind it. I wonder how much of these pig gang people are going to be involved in the manga, because right now, again, it just seems episodic. And Naruto did kind of start off that way to build to the bigger picture, but again, the way it stands right now, the problem with Samurai 8, I personally feel that people have with it, is the fact that, again, it doesn't have that structure to give you these answers immediately that you want, on top of the fact that it's a complex series, which is the sci-fi genre. The sci-fi genre can get very complex, so we got flashes back to these crazy samurai fights, then back to Nanashi, then back to Nanashi talking to her hands and talking to the statue. It gets confusing. I think Samurai 8, as I said in my last video, I'll say it again, this would have benefited from being in the seinen manga, so that way the misunderstandings from people that they want their, Luffy's and Naruto's, and they want that simplistic character, this isn't going to be a simplistic character. In the third chapter, his sensei is already saying that he doesn't understand how this kid is basically defying gravitational pull. And you see like there's these machines in the sky. A lot of bizarre, wacky stuff with Samurai 8. But again, it seems as though Kishimoto does have a vision. It's just a long-term thing. And manga readers that they're reading the volumes when that comes out, they'll have a better experience, I say. Because I can't put it down because narrative-wise, it's solid so far. I would say that maybe if Nanashi shouldn't have left, but then again, if he has a bigger purpose for it, and like 2 or 3 chapters she comes back and it's something incredible and she's already advanced, which the pacing is very fast at the same time, as well as like bigger overall arcing stories that you could tell that he's not just thinking about chapter at a time, he's thinking overall. So that's why it's happening like that. But at the same time, still getting a lot of elements that you love in shonen. And honestly, chapter 3, the weakest chapter of the 3, I'll definitely say that. Nanashi's departure, really disappointing. I was digging the character. I was alright, okay, this is the vibe, this is where we're going with. So a little bit like making me confused. Like, are we just gonna get a bunch of episodic stuff to start off with, just to build things up? Is that where Kishimoto's going? Like, he just wants us to love Hachimaru and his pet Hayotaro and these characters. And also, a lot of, again, suspense and building up. Kishimoto, one of the things I remember he complained about with Naruto was that he wished he knew as a writer what he knew later on in terms of setting things up for foreshadowing, stuff like that. You can see there's a lot of mystery to Hachimaru's father, that the samurai cat is kind of questioning, like, who is he? What's going on with the key inside of him? This isn't a typical samurai. So again, very nicely developing. You cannot count out Samurai 8. I know that a lot of people right now, they're either lost, confused, or they're just counting it out, but I can see the bigger picture right now. And again, Samurai 8, chapter 3, again, weak chapter in terms of like, yo, we beat a pig and we just got a little more insight into this character, Nanashi, that's not even going to be around the next chapter, but it's just building more suspense into Hachimaru and more world building. And it gave me a little bit of a classic Dragon Ball vibe, but still the weakest of the bunch. And I hope we get it together with the next few chapters and get more answers so we can understand what's going on with these samurais that are linked to these characters like Nanashi and Hachimaru, and just insanity. But yeah, kind of curious what you guys think about this though. 3 chapters in, are you yay, nay? Is Samurai 8? I mean, you cannot judge. I mean, Naruto went 700. One Piece is 900 plus. You know, there's so many series that are going. You cannot completely cast it away. You could say, hey, it's not for me. But I could totally see, again, this is going to be around. And a lot of people that they like the shit that gets really good over time and may not have the best start. Look at One Piece, one of the best series of all time, but people argue One Piece started off a little bit slow. I'm not shitting on One Piece, I'm just saying, like what, Dragon Ball, all of these series. Give Samurai 8 a little bit of a chance is all I'm saying, because I see a lot of hate coming in, and I think that's also remnants of people that they didn't like Naruto, and they're coming because they just, that's just how it goes. I don't know. I don't understand that mindset. I'm curious your overall thoughts of Samurai 8 as of right now. What do you feel as though is the problem that is stopping people from completely just praising it already? Is it too simplistic? Is it too complex? Is it not explaining things enough? And do you think that Masashi Kishimoto essentially has the same deal as Yoshihiro Togashi, where he's just dropping by and dropping like 40 chapters and saying, alright, here you go, I'll see you later, and that's why it doesn't feel structured properly, and maybe Jump is having to come in there and make cuts in order to make it, you know, chapters week after week. And finally, I just wanted to add in there, I'm still rocking with Samurai 8. I hope people still go with it, because as it stands right now, it's building to something great, and it's the beginning. Give it a chance. Okay, so 4 chapters in now. I'm not gonna lie, this chapter had me very mixed. There was one thing in particular, and we're gonna talk about it. One thing that had me like, regarding Hachimaru, but we're gonna talk about it, because the chapter, it was a mixed bag for me, and there was a lot of influence and things, and again, for Kishimoto, it just seems like, is this a new thing that Kishimoto and a lot of authors are going into? But yeah, let's jump into it.
Whether Facebook, Twitter, or the two, make sure to steer clear, cause I'm coming through like...
So this chapter of Samurai 8, this is going to be a brief, I don't know if you even call it a review, because quite a few things happened, a lot of things to digest, but there was some very simplistic elements that kind of had me a little bit disappointed, and again, that was towards the end of the chapter. But I guess let's kind of just jump into it, and then I'll go in, because it might turn into a rant, I'm not gonna lie. That's how deep I feel regarding Hachimaru and certain things that happen towards the end of the chapter. But in the chapter in that show is giving us context to giving limits to the powers, such as like that dog that Hachimaru is on, Hayatoro, his dog, can't like go to the stars, for example. So again, it's giving me a Mega Man feel. It feels like everything is coming full circle now with stories. Like we're headed back to when we was like in the 80s and the Mega Man type stories and stuff like that, because this chapter, one of the things I want to talk about real quick, and maybe y'all gonna feel a little bit certain way, but I gotta keep it honest, one of the things that I really appreciated, and I've started noticing a lot of these elements more and more as we keep on reading through Samurai 8, regarding a different series again, was the series Eden Zero by the creator of Fairy Tail. And when that series came out, and it just came out, what, last year? Or, yeah, I want to say it was sometime last year. And I really appreciated that. I was like, okay, it's going futuristic, it's doing a lot of science fiction elements and things like that. And Samurai 8, the more I'm reading it, one of the things is like this chapter again, when you get the insides of the cat, the samurai cat, stuff like that, it felt very Eden Zero. This manga feels very, very inspired. Like, I don't know if Kishimoto, he had his sci-fi idea, and then he's seen what Hiro Mashima did with Eden Zero and kind of got inspired to go that route, because again, it just feels like artistically, like the cat, the insides, and again, I'm not saying that, oh my god, he created that, but the way the structure is, it really feels a lot like Eden Zero. A lot of this, so far, collecting the keys and things like that. Again, Eden Zero, which it's not the originator of that story, and a lot of this goes back into like Japanese folklore and a lot of different things. So yeah, you could argue that, okay, it's inspired at the very least, and I'm not ranting about that per se, as I'm not upset about it. But one of the things I appreciated about Naruto, and maybe even early on, because I remember early on people did hate on Naruto and said like, yo, the jumpsuit and the blonde hair is like Super Saiyan Goku. So maybe that's the thing that we're gonna get with this one in terms of it's early on. So when it's a manga's early on and it's inspired by things, it kind of gets a little hectic, and that's how I feel. Maybe a lot of people haven't checked out Eden Zero yet, and if you have, let me know. Am I right that it feels very similar to Eden Zero? It almost feels like they could coincide in the same universe, like Hachimaru's just on another planet that they haven't went to yet, the main characters of Eden Zero. So, and that'd be a crazy crossover, and especially now that I think about it, hold on a second, here's a crazy thing, and this is kind of outside of this, but Shonen Jump and Shonen Magazine recently did some type of partnership magazine where they combined for a big issue release, and they had the characters of the different magazines together. What if there's a possibility that we could have a crossover with Samurai 8 and Eden Zero? And that's one of the things that helps, is the fact that they're very similar in nature, that Samurai 8 could just be, right now, Hachimaru's journey could just be on another planet. That would be freaking insane. Thinking outside the box, sometimes, who knows, maybe, with everything that's happening in Japan, a lot of the magazines are working closer now. Things are getting a little bit better, so I'd love to see that. So we find out a little bit more, of course, about the cat. His real identity is Daruma, which this is again a classic thing I've seen in different series about this certain. So like, even if you go to Bleach, look at Bleach, Yoruichi, it's kind of similar, where you look at the first character that we see in the beginning of the story, that's with like the samurai that looks like the Sage of Six Paths, looks a lot like Yoruichi, right? So Daruma, they just kind of switch things around. Daruma essentially is kind of like that scenario. And another thing that kind of caught me, which I'm like, again, maybe it goes back into my theory of this being the futuristic or the future of the Narutoverse, something like that. The soul that Daruma, or what he looked like in the past, looked like that Naruto character that Hachimaru was playing as, the one that has like the Zoro scar through his eye and stuff like that. I can't wait for the day, because what's gonna happen when Daruma finally turns back into his true form. Essentially, Masashi Kishimoto is bringing the Naruto Naruto design into this manga, because that's very Naruto-like. It's just, again, with like a scar over his eye, but that's gonna be badass too when it happens. I'm calling foreshadowings all over the place. And the big meat of it all is that they're trying to save the planetary belt that's going to be annihilated, and this cat is looking for the box with the keys, stuff like that. A lot of elements of like Pandora's box, and if he opens it, what'll happen. So it also gives me vibes a little bit, if you go back to, again, another thing, maybe, you know, who knows, maybe behind the scenes Masashi Kishimoto's a big fan of Hiro Mashima's work, because it also reminds me of Rave Master, kind of the whole dire situation. I think the element that made this a little bit more exciting as well is the fact that the Earth is in dire, you know, trouble, because if the planetary belt, you know, is annihilated, we're done for. And I want to kind of just jump over a couple of elements, because it was a little bit more regarding, you know, the father and finding out Hachimaru's one of the keys, or kind of pushing more even forth that he's one of these keys to the box or whatever. But this is where it gets a little bit rantish. I'm not even gonna lie. And this is where I'm starting to wonder, like, is this how Masashi Kishimoto sees children these days, or is that the stereotype, or is that really just how children are? Because the end of the chapter, when Daruma's like, okay, you could come on this journey with me, and he crosses the line and he says, and by the way, the whole Samurai 8 thing, okay, his favorite number is 8, Samurai 8 crossing the line, whatever, and a lot of more deep, complex elements to it, but he says, if you cross that line, you will never be able to live with your father again, right? Following me? Something like that. Look at Hachimaru's father. He was very overprotective for a reason. He protected him because he was like this rare thing. He loved him. He cared about him. The argument that they had, it felt like a very realistic thing. If you take the concept, you take out all the futuristic robotic stuff or whatever, essentially a son that was forced to stay in his home because the father cared about him, and he never got to go outside, even had ways to go outside and the father would lie, you know, like the life support pack. So I understand that Hachimaru is a kid that is right now very upset with his father because he never got to go outside, and he's finding out that his father purposely kept him in. But it just felt like, wow, in one panel, this kid said, hey father, I know that you loved me my whole life, I know that you protected me and everything like that, but you know what, this cat, am I calling to be a samurai? This is what you get, Pops, okay? Father, this is what you get, because I'm walking away. In one panel, Hachimaru decides he's never going to live with his father again, and that's it. So, right there, more foreshadowing. I bet when he comes back, his father's going to be dead. That's the reason he'll never be able to live with his father again. I bet you anything, because there was also foreshadowing that Hachimaru's father is being hunted down by somebody that were coming from him. So, probably give it 6 chapters. We'll come back. It'll be a wrap for Hachimaru's Pops. But that really kind of made me feel like, yo, and it reminded me of early Boruto as well, that spoiled nature of like one panel, and I know maybe it's faster paced stuff now with manga, but one panel you decide to never see the father that loved you and cared about you all these years again. One panel, that's how long it took Hachimaru. When we get the anime, that better take a little bit more than fucking 1 second, I'm telling you right now, because that's a big life choice. Again, he's a kid that is upset with his father and feeling like he was lied to, but still, I am like, Hachimaru, cut it out. Cut it out. We don't need to start off on some worlds. It's like, okay, I get it. This is shonen manga that we need growth and change, and we're seeing how immature, and it's going to cost him dearly. I can almost guarantee when Hachimaru pops, or when Hachimaru comes back, his pops will be slain, dead, or missing, something along the lines of that. And maybe that'll distract the mission from collecting these keys, because then he's going to have to hunt after his father, similar to like how Naruto wanted to become Hokage, but then got distracted by chasing Sasuke. So this will be a little bit more reasonable, like, hey, that's his pops. But man, I don't know. I'm upset about that. The great setups and world building is cool and all that, but Hachimaru, bro, we don't need Boruto right now. That's early Boruto, and I don't dig that. I don't dig early Boruto. So that's the gripe that I have with this chapter. Otherwise, a lot of setup. I can see people being overwhelmed. I can see people being like, I can't rock with this because there's too much information. It's Hunter x Hunter like without a core following. So it's gonna be a slippery slope. I know that there's gonna be a lot of backing behind this. Shonen Jump really believes in it. I think so far it's great. I'm starting to look a little bit at Hachimaru closer, like, I don't know, kid. Right now, you're looking a little, ooh. But then again, maybe that's the Gon Freaks in him. I did say that he's kind of like Gon Freaks. Gon Freaks, he would tell his pops, yo, I'm out of here. Not even thinking twice. So maybe that's the unpredictable nature of Hachimaru. Maybe we should look at it in terms of, like, that's a good thing in terms of he's unpredictable, makes for a more interesting character, still makes for like, bro, you should have thought a little bit more about your pops. I'm just saying. Kind of curious what you guys think about this though. Does this make you look a little bit more at Hachimaru like, bro, what are you doing? One panel? Or am I overreacting? I mean, I've seen quite a few people feeling the same way, but I'm just kind of like, I don't know. And your overall thoughts of everything, Daruma, where you think this is going? Again, do you think there's a possibility we can see a crossover with Eden Zero? Now that Shonen Jump and Shonen Magazine are kind of rubbing elbows a little bit, I'd love it. I think it'd be great for the industry. I think it'd bump both of them up. Two huge creators. It'll be historic. You know, we've had already the historic things of One Piece crossing over with Dragon Ball and Toriko, whatever. But, you know, now that would be even huge. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that a Fairy Tail is better than, because Toriko fans are going to be like, oh, you said, oh, for Toriko. But, yeah, those are my favorites. I'm allowed to have my preference or whatever. Well, Fairy Tail's not a favorite, but I rock with it. I reviewed it for a long time, and I enjoy a lot of things of it. So, again, your thoughts on that. And your overall expectations, Samurai, 4 chapters in. I'm not being overly critical, because I'm telling you right now, it's still very enjoyable, very good. Hachimaru, just, I'm wondering, where is it? Is it a Boruto-like character, or is it an unpredictable Gon Freaks-like character where he's like, the mission, the samurai? You know, one of the things I'll describe is a samurai can't hesitate. A true samurai doesn't hesitate. Hachimaru didn't hesitate, so maybe that goes along with the mission, and us as people were just misinterpreting and misunderstanding it. Okay, so I've been doing this for a while, so I kind of know how Shonen Jump rolls when it comes to marketing and trying to switch the narrative regarding something happening in their manga, or in their magazine for that matter, that in particular is a new series that may not be doing the best, or in general they just want to switch the topic of conversation. Now, my last Samurai 8 video, I told you guys I seen what word of mouth is, and a lot of people, they just ain't digging what's happening with this series. They're not liking it, and I kind of pointed out a lot of reasons why I feel that way, but it seems as though potentially the topic of conversation has not changed, so much so that Shonen Jump, with one of their newest marketing ploys, again, like I said, they've been doing this for a while. I've been doing this for a while, so I know what I'm talking about. Just like when Hungry Joker, they said it's getting rave reviews and it's doing amazing, and then gets canceled, or, you know, they do this. So Samurai 8, with the latest chapter, I believe it's chapter 7, the cover of it, they have a little message talking about what the word of mouth is regarding the series, despite it being the polar opposite to the things I've seen thus far online. We're gonna talk about it, but man, Samurai 8, with only 7 chapters, you gotta give it credit. Kishimoto's name reigns so supreme that no matter good or bad, people always seem to talk about his work. So shall we?
Whether Facebook, Twitter, or the two, make sure to steer clear, cause I'm coming through like...
Okay, so like I said, Samurai 8, been rocky, and in fact I kind of want to read a couple of the things I've seen online scouring the interwebs of some of the things that people have been saying. For starters, one person said, I don't understand this shit, and okay, you know, fair enough, that's pretty much what I said people have been saying. Another one is, stories progressing, next chapter may be interesting, but I'm still not sold on the concept of the cyborg samurai princess 8 keys or whatever. Plus the main character's an annoying little shit, and not in a funny way. And princesses are basically housewives, secretaries who make flower decorations and make phone calls. How are they empowering the samurai? I can confirm it's not by fighting on the samurai side, since all the fights we've seen only involve the samurai alone. All the princesses are shown to be sitting around in a palace. Not a great premise to show strong female characters. That's a very valid one, and in fact, if I'm not mistaken, I remember the creator of Naruto, Masashi Kishimoto, said that women were never his strong point. Let's read one more. Naruto was about some dumb kid in a world with ninjas who wanted to be a ninja president. Cool start, small. The premise is about growth, seeing what responsibilities are out there, go places, see people, do things, consequences. Samurai 8 is about some dumb kid in a world with cyborg samurai who wanted to be a cyborg samurai. Then he did it. The dog goes meow. Did I mention his master is a talking rat? Battle. Glasses. Yikes. People really aren't digging this. So again, like I've said, people just continuing to say kind of the same things about it. So let's see what Shonen Jump says, though, according to them, what people in other countries outside of Japan are saying about the series. This manga has garnered praise from many a country. We gratefully present a colored centerfold of this sci-fi samurai themed hit. Wait, what? Hit? Where is this a hit at? It better be a hit in Shonen Jump. It better be like everybody better be loving it, because right now, from many a country outside of Japan, all I've been seeing is the opposite. And don't get me wrong, me personally, since the last time we're talking about 3 or 4 chapters, I've been digging Samurai 8. Honestly, I like the whole premise. I like that it's been giving you a lot so that later on, when we have big climactic battles. We don't need all that setup of like, hey, gathering from one thing, because the problem with Naruto was that it started off very, very simple. In fact, the time that we seen the Kage, remember it was, I believe, Orochimaru brought back the first and second Hokage, and he tried to bring back the fourth. Remember, it was manipulated that first it was supposed to be that the fourth was the strongest, then somehow it became Hashirama. I see it as what Samurai 8 is doing is Kishimoto's trying to get rid of all of that stuff now of like things happening out the blue. I think the message of Samurai 8 also is that a samurai isn't just a title. Because what I've seen thus far with this cat master, Daruma, that he's been trying to teach Hachimaru the ropes a bit of like, yo, it's more than just that. I will 100% agree that I'm not digging Hachimaru. And I think that, again, this is a very astute observation. Kishimoto looks at children these day and age as just that. If you pay close attention, look at Boruto, how Boruto was designed. Hachimaru is essentially how Boruto was at the beginning of the manga, and that's something that I can't defend, because like, I was not a big fan of Boruto, the way he was written. And again, I think that's Masashi Kishimoto. Maybe you could argue that that is exactly what kids are like, or you could say that he's out of touch with what kids are like. I don't know, but this is his interpretation of kids kind of being very spoiled and not having any idea or any eye for adventure, and Daruma is constantly trying to teach him. I was disappointed that seemingly the way the story is trying to push it is that this Princess Anne is the princess for Hachimaru, but I think that's going to play later on, where Nanashi is going to actually be the true princess for him. He already met his princess and he has all his tools, and it's been developing things like the bone hilt, the fact that, you know, the samurai dog is more important than ever. A lot of really, really interesting things with this manga, but people just aren't having it. People just, for whatever reason, keep on dogging at it. So me, I'm going to talk about it the way I've been, kind of here and there at this point when it catches my interest. But as it stands right now, it seems like Shonen Jump is doing damage control. I'll be honest with you. It seems as though Shonen Jump they probably invested a lot of money in this. They probably invested a lot to bring Masashi Kishimoto back to the magazine, especially on a weekly basis, and maybe things right now are taking off. I hope in the future, once there's enough content and people can stop making a comparison to a 700 chapter series to like a 7 chapter series, like this is 1% of Naruto, you know what I'm saying? And I'd argue that this is more interesting than the first 1% of Naruto. We didn't even hit Zabuza yet, or we just started barely getting into that. Samurai 8 has been setting up the world. So honestly, I get why people are like this, and in terms of I understand the mindset. I don't agree with it, because despite my one complaint, Hachimaru, which I guess that's where we got to get over the hump of like, hey, this is a shonen manga, so you got to have something in there like that, which again, Kishimoto sees kids that way. It has to be, or at the very least, that's my opinion of how I view Kishimoto writing children, because they always end up similar to this. I mean, it didn't start that way, and maybe that was his mindset back when he created Naruto, that it was different. Now it is this. So despite that, I still fuck with the series. I still think the world building is great. The introduction of the samurai, seeing that they're hunting down Hachimaru, that they're trying to say, oh, he's essentially an anomaly in a way, possibly, because he became a samurai by chance. They don't realize that his father set all this up, I'm imagining. So a lot of great stuff, great plot twists to come. But yeah, kind of curious. What is your stance on this? Are you too confused still? Do you think that Shonen Jump is again trying to change the narrative? Again, I'll be honest with you. I've seen this too many times with this. I fell for it many times. Like, I thought Hungry Joker, man, they got to be selling well. They thought, no. This is probably the fact that everything that you've seen online about people bashing it, despite maybe some of us may see the bigger picture, is probably accurate, but we gotta wait and see. Only time will tell. I've seen this happen again with Black Clover. I've seen it happen too many times to say completely that it's sold off either way. But your overall thoughts and expectations for the future of this. I really hope Kishimoto makes Hachimaru grow out of this Boruto, beginning of Boruto character archetype pretty quickly, because yeah, he is kind of annoying, disrespectful, but then again, I guess at the same time, if you think about the whole concept of it, is merging old with new, right? And it's taking this new generation that has such a lack of, in a way, you know, from what everybody would argue, a lack of respect for culture and tradition and things like that, and you're merging it with tradition and things like that. So you're taking samurai and merging it with something that is so out of its element, space and sci-fi, which is probably what the whole thing is supposed to be, but still, I can't defend that. I don't like Hachimaru, but I fuck with everything else about the series. Let's change that up. Let's get more interesting characters. And yeah, your overall thoughts. Samurai 8, yay, nay, are you dropping it? You already dropped it, don't give a shit. Yeah.
So it's been a bit since we've talked about Samurai 8, and we're 10 chapters in now, and I honestly wanted to talk about it because it's been pretty freaking crazy. There's been some sluggish chapters since the last time I talked about it, but I'll definitely say one thing before we jump into this. I feel a little bit of Saiyan Saga DBZ inspiration with the latest events in Samurai. Let's talk about it.
Whether Facebook, Twitter, or the two, make sure to steer clear, cause I'm coming through like...
So when we last left off with Samurai 8, Hachimaru seemingly ran into who is supposed to be his princess, some girl named Anne. Now, Anne, again, I've said it before, she feels like she's a Hinata type. She feels as though she's basically like, you know, the easygoing, she stutters a lot, and it's showing a different realm for these characters. Honestly, again, it seems as though the way Kishimoto wanted to write this story, he started off with experimenting with the characters in the cast of Boruto. Because to be honest with you, one of the last times that I talked about this, you know, manga and whatnot, it was the fact that it seemed as though the main character, Hachimaru, was a lot like old Boruto, very unappreciative, doesn't respect, and that's one of the things that I would definitely say that still hasn't changed, and I'm not a fan of, but it's clear to say that that's what Kishimoto feels the new generation is. And I've seen a lot of it in my real life, to be honest with you, that kids don't really respect their elders anymore. And the amount of disrespect that Hachimaru does to Daruma, I'm just saying. Because if there's anything that bothers me about this manga, it's kind of Hachimaru himself. Like, don't get me wrong, we'll probably see him advance and grow, and this is early on. We're 10 chapters in. There's a lot of room for character development, but I will say, like, between him kind of capping for the princess and saying, nah, I always been strong. Every time Daruma teaches him a lesson, he's like, I don't even remember. He tells him, shut up sometimes. It showcases that this kid has a long way to go to truly be a samurai warrior that can be a real one, you know what I'm saying? Because he's disrespectful, he doesn't take the lessons in, he lies, it's like, yo, what are we dealing with here? And that's not to say that the manga is completely like, you know, just, whoa, throw it away, because there's been a lot of cool things about it, and like I said in the opening of this video, it seems as though we're heading towards, and we've been gearing towards up until this chapter when he arrived, some sort of Saiyan Saga type of deal. Mainly due to the character Atta. Atta, between the fact of like, yo, there's been some hype shit. Him going through the moon and killing that famous legendary samurai that was guarding the planets and whatnot. This guy, it was like on some Vegeta and Nappa shit. Like all the chapters leading up until his arrival, him hunting down Hachiku, which definitely showcases that there's something very special about Hachimaru. The fact that he's calling him by another name. Again, I'm not fluent with Japanese, so I don't know what Hachiku means compared to Hachimaru, but it definitely showcases that this guy is like on some Saiyan Saga Nappa shit, because on his way to here, arriving in front of, you know, the main cast or whatever, this dude killed again a legendary guard that, you know, he's a legendary samurai that Daruma kind of knew and Daruma had fights with back in the day. And this dude did him like butter, and then on top of that, disrespected him. There's a lot of elements with this manga, though, that it hits to the heart. I think the relationship between Hachimaru and his father, the fact that his father is really hurting that Hachimaru just basically dipped with this cat, you know, him looking and saying, man, you know, he needs his IV and forgetting that he don't need IV anymore and things like that. It definitely feels as though there's an element of almost a father wanting to rescue his son in this manga thus far, and I like that. I like the fact that the father hasn't been completely thrown away yet, and like, you know, he's like, no, that's my son, I want my son, I did not give you permission to take my son away. I rock with that. It's a little interesting, different element, because how many shonen manga even include parents for that matter? And if they do, it's like a ging that like, yo, take that motherfucker away, or a Minato, hey, I'm going to die and leave my son to take care of the rest of my problems. Like, you normally don't have the father being this passionate. And if we're speaking in terms of real world and stuff like that, that's a very good message for the kids, to be a good father and a good parent. Although based on, you know, the earlier chapters where Daruma drew the line in the sand and told Hachimaru, you'll never be able to live with your father again. I truly believe that. I truly believe that Atta is going to kill Hachimaru's father. Big prediction there, but it goes further. Let me throw another prediction. I personally have a strong feeling that Atta was possibly Furuta, aka, you know, Hachimaru's father. I think that was his first creation, his first son, so to speak. Just think about it. This dude's a badass, right? He knows this doctor, so to speak. He's like, hey, how's it going when he arrives on the planet or whatever. So he knows him. He's a robotic creation. It just feels as though there's a possibility, because look at the way he treated the father, his son, all of these years. He created a weakened robot that has so many problems. He couldn't go outside and things like that. You know, his son was essentially like very, very weak. Maybe there's a possibility that the reason why Hachimaru was in that fashion was the fact that he didn't want to make the same mistakes that he made with Ata. Again, these are a lot of theories and whatnot, but it would make a lot of sense. The fact that he knows him, the fact that he's, you know, Hachimaru was essentially his first son. Maybe the reason why he coddled Hachimaru and protected him from the world was because he seen what happened to his first son, Ata. And I'm not gonna lie, that is probably one of the most exciting things about the story right now, between the father. I think every time you add Hachimaru's father into the story, it starts getting a little more exciting again. You know, we got this dude hunting shit down, and again, there was some boring chapters. I ain't gonna lie, like a lot of the stuff with the development between Hachimaru and the princess Anne, it was like whatever. Them going in search of the locker balls and finding one, okay, cool. It's showcasing a difference. You know, I'll say this, you know, I take it back. Maybe not boring is the right word, because in terms of shonen manga, how many really just dive right into a relationship thing? You see that there's development within their relationship. It starts off with Hachimaru lying, right? Like, yo, I was always the shit. You know, he was capping hard. And then at the same time, her trying to understand him, her feeling comfortable, her being able to find locker balls because her samurai is next to him. You're definitely going to see more with it, because yeah, now she found out, oh, so Hachimaru was a liar. Once, it always, leave it up to your pops to come and blow your spot up when you're trying to get a shorty, you know what I'm saying? But I think that leaves great room for improvement, because Anne doesn't seem like the type of girl that is going to immediately dismiss Hachimaru. I think she knows that they're kind of like soulmates, essentially. She knows that. So if anything, it's going to make her want to understand him more. Well, why did he lie to me? Did he lie to me because he really likes me and he didn't want me to know that he's been a weakling all along? Honestly, I want to say again, Hachimaru, and maybe it's just that attitude. There's something about that attitude. The fact that he disregards Daruma's logic. The fact that he kind of shits on his father and says, no, I'm not going with you anywhere. The fact that he doesn't pay attention. Like, there's just so many different things where, honestly, the problem with Samurai 8, if it doesn't blow, will be because of Hachimaru. Because he just gives off that, I don't give a shit about this adventure, even though I'm supposed to, and I love this adventure. If you love this adventure and you want this adventure, you will soak it all in. But again, maybe it's a representation of today's age. And in all honesty, as it stands right now, Samurai 8 with 10 chapters, you know, because I'm going to keep on coming back to this series. I really rock with the fact that Kishimoto is trying something different. There's some things that it feels as though like the art maybe could be a little bit better. There's room for improvement with the art, because sometimes it does feel a little bit messy. But I'm really digging right now where we're at, because Ata showing up saying, yo, a long time no see Furuta, where's Hachikaku? What does that mean? Was originally Hachimaru something else, and then maybe it broke down, and then he created Hachimaru, the father? Like, there's a lot of questions right now, and I think there's so much room for, you know, plot revelations and so many things based on the vagueness of what's been set up. So, quick video, but I'm kind of curious what you guys think about all this. For starters, how do you feel about Princess Anne and her relationship with Hachimaru? Do you think that Hachimaru is the biggest problem of this series right now? Because the cat, cool, sensei type of guy, whatevs, no problem there. The plot itself, very intriguing, very mysterious, very different. You know, this guy coming and slashing through planets, killing the old man. It was like, we got the third Hokage's death already, even though nobody gave a shit about this character, so it doesn't measure up. But we got a very, very strong force or ally from this planetary federation being, you know, swiped to death by this Ata guy. This guy is like, it felt like it was a Saiyan on his way, and then he showed up and was like, what is Hachimaru gonna do? Hachimaru ain't on that level yet. Daruma's gonna have to jump in, or we are going to see the death of Hachimaru's father here and now. What Daruma said when he created the line, and he said, you know, this is the line of the sand. You cross that line, you're never going to be with your father. It's because possibly Furuta's going to die right here. And that'll be very, very big. And maybe Hachimaru's character will drastically change after that. Maybe he'll stop blind. Maybe he'll listen to his sensei. Maybe he'll actually, you know, be the character that we want him to be. Because, again, Hachimaru is still the biggest thing that is holding this manga back. Like, you know what I'm saying? If he would apply himself a bit more and not feel so early Boruto-ish, I don't think people would have a problem with it. Because to be honest with you, I'm enjoying the manga. Like, I'm actually really rocking with it. I think it's really dope, different, could be a little bit clearer, maybe a little bit too complex for some people, but I rock with it. It's just Hachimaru. Or it could just be that I'm kind of over the whole, hey, you need 1,000,000 years of character development because right now you're kind of a little, I'm kind of curious what you guys think about this. For starters, do you think that Ata was the original creation of Furuta? Maybe that's his first son, and that's why he, you know, kept Hachimaru all secluded all these years. Also, do you think Furuta's going to die here? Ata's going to kill him. How strong do you think Ata is? If he was able to kill somebody that Daruma used to fight back in the day, maybe there's a possibility this dude is about to really rock shit. You know what I'm saying? Maybe he'll kidnap Hachimaru on some, DBZ, because if it feels like a DBZ-esque arc, there's a possibility he's gonna kidnap this dude, and then, Furuta and the cat is gonna have to go and get him, and that'll be the end of Furuta. Big theory there. The overall thoughts and expectations for the future of Samurai 8. I'm not gonna lie, I dig it. There's still a lot of room for improvement, but this is very interesting. It's not playing by all the rules of a regular shonen. We're getting romance between the two characters already, the main characters. It kind of gives me a little bit of that Twin Star Exorcist feel, which Masashi Kishimoto was admittedly a fan of. That manga, where the two characters is like destined to be together or whatever. He was a fan of that. Maybe we're going to get some of that again with this, and that's why we're seeing that relationship developing, and it's not pussyfooting around. Like, they already know, hey, we might be meant for each other. The overall thoughts and expectations for the future of Samurai 8. Again, right now, it's heating up. Ata right now is changing shit up and making it serious, because we had a couple of character development chapters, not much development with Hachimaru. Maybe this will be it. Hachimaru's father is gonna die here. I'm calling it.
Okay, I just gotta say it, and no disrespect, because y'all know I love me some Naruto, but Naruto in the first 13 or so chapters was not at the level that Samurai 8 is right now. So for people that felt like it was a snooze fest, maybe in the 5 or 6 chapter mark, whatever, yeah, you might want to double check and jump back into this bad boy, because Samurai 8 is showing why Masashi Kishimoto is truly a manga creating legend. Let's talk about it.
Whether Facebook, Twitter, or the two, make sure to steer clear, cause I'm coming through like...
Now, hands down, Ata has completely transformed the perspective of many readers alike regarding this series, Samurai 8. The latest, or the first major villain of this series, Ata showing up, just changed everything. Like, for starters, his character design already sick as hell, but from when he shows up from, I want to say, what was it, chapter like 10 he showed up, but from chapters 11 to 13, which is what I'm going to primarily be talking about, Ata has just made this series feel more dangerous, gave it purpose, made it more exciting, interesting, gave it some incredible fights. Like, yo, we're getting Raikiri battles in the first 13 chapters, which, don't get me wrong, some people might take that as like, yo, it's going overboard, but it is showing that Samurai 8 is not going to be a snooze fest, which I think a lot of people kind of had that mindset, because Samurai 8 was very descriptive of things, a lot of Japanese names that people can't pronounce, a lot of, whoa, like he's a samurai cat dog, all sorts of crazy things. So it had a lot, but it was preparing you for what was to come, which is Ata. And boy, he came all over the motherfucker. Now let me stop. So Ata being Daruma's best pupil up until this point anyway, and he hasn't, I believe he said hasn't considered him his pupil for a long time now, but he came over here, he's looking for Hachikaku, aka Hachimaru, and this dude was a savage. I mean, what he did in the 3 chapters of where the fight really commenced, it's been freaking insane, because I think he showed up at the end of chapter 10 or so, and then chapter 11 is when the fight really begins, and you see, wow, like, yo, he put Hachimaru's pops on a respirator, dog. So getting a little more into it is like, okay, so this is major. Not only was this incredibly freaking dope, like for a startup arc of like a true arc or whatnot, it was great, but also it was a very good foreshadowing of the future. We get introduced to that so there's a group that they're trying to, because the whole premise of the series, if I'm not mistaken, is that they're trying to get these 7 keys, right? I mean, in the very beginning, there's 7 keys to unlock this box, kind of Pandora's box, I'm imagining, or whatever. So they want to do that, but it seems as though with this group, they're trying to create like artificial keys, essentially, to get this box open, and Ata and this group had enlisted Hachimaru's father to do that. Now I'm looking at it like, there's so much mystery right here. Okay, so Hachimaru's father created these, or he was creating skeleton prototypes for this, but then also Atsu's connected to Daruma, which is insane. So many connections, I know, right? Like, we're connected, bro. Enter the Matrix. But no, seriously. So Hachimaru's father was creating these, but he created an 8th key and then decided, you know what, I think that I'm going to make this dude my son now. What? But yeah, in chapter 11 we get a lot of crazy talk. Definitely Hachimaru feeling very embarrassed because he talked all of that riff-raff to Anne, like, yeah, you know, I've been like the best pupil at my dojo, and like I'm just the shit, bro, which very reminiscent of like a Boruto or even early Naruto. I'm not gonna completely just keep on casting this because we've seen a lot of growth already with this character, character, but he was kind of like, you know, early Boruto, whatever, and he got really shitted on bad. Ata was like, how dare you utter these names, like, so many interesting things. Ata goes and takes that spirit ball, which I forget what they're called, from Daruma, like, a lot of stuff to digest. Each chapter gives you tons and tons of info that when this gets an anime, which you better believe this will get an anime, this is Masashi Kishimoto, this is going to be exciting. Like, I think they could probably pass off a chapter or a chapter and a half per episode because there's just so much to take in. And going back to, holy cow, a lot of things have been foreshadowed, which we still don't really know too much about Daruma. Ata apologized for abandoning Baku, the princess, and said, I know it must have left you in agony, or whatever the heck he said regarding like it affected Daruma greatly. I'm kind of curious, was Baku his princess? Did he like abandon his princess and went to the dark side, or was that Daruma's princess that he was supposed to, you know, Ata was enlisted to protect, and like he was very apologetic? It seems as though if Ata started off as Daruma's, you know, apprentice, or, you know, one of his students, and also a friend, working together with Hachimaru's father, which I think his name is Furuta, if I'm not mistaken. Somewhere along the way, he met this group, or these people, or created this group with these people to do some messed up things. So something skewed him along the way. So he's already, you can see he's been changed somewhat. But if he started off righteous, who knows? Maybe at some given point after he comes one more time to Earth, like on some, when Vegeta left Earth, which I still gotta go back to, he reminds me a lot of the Saiyans coming. You know, when Vegeta left, he's like, haha, when I come back, I'm gonna really wreck shit. And then he comes back and bones the crap out of Bulma, and that was that. Which I gotta say, for a lot of people that were early on talking crap about the princesses as well, like, so what do they do? And it had some balls, bro. Like, Hachimaru was there sniveling, cowarding, and Anne was jumping in front of him already. Like, even Hagamichi starts busting guns and shit, and Hayataro's jumping in, like, everybody but Hachimaru, which it was leading up to it, so it was a good thing. Like, it showed, like, I think Kishi wanted us to feel like, man, this guy is just trash, he's a liar, he's a shithead, so that when he does have that triumphant moment, we get the flashbacks and everything, it could really be like, whoa, because like, yo, how your princess gotta jump in front of you? I mean, it makes for cool storytelling, but come on, dog, like, yo, what? And there's a lot of metaphoric, philosophical, I don't know if it's metaphoric or not, to be honest with you, but they continue talking about when the god of war abandons you, it's all over, we all, or Ata keeps on saying, you know, we all died once during the ceremony, a lot of really interesting things. So I don't know if this is philosophy that they live by, or this is actually genuinely, like, there's truly a god of war that sometimes just abandons you and leaves you out. Like, I don't know exactly what they're talking about there. Maybe there's some more to it than meets the eye, but just so much interesting detail that really makes me look at it like, Kishimoto really thought this one out. He really took the time from Naruto to this series to do his studies and really make some interesting shit. And going back to Furuta, Hachimaru's father, he was, again, seemingly a scientist that was had abandoned them. So why was it that he abandoned them at the last moment? Was it that he created Hachimaru? I'm imagining it was that he created the 8th key, Hachimaru. Maybe he, at some given point, started to develop like a bond with this character. Didn't want them to destroy her. He put something very special into this one, and because they wanted to maybe destroy it, discard it, like, we don't need that one, that's an 8th one, he probably ran with it, I'm imagining. And then we also see that he essentially reconstructed himself, because Ata says that, wait, you were human, what's going on, how are you mechanical? So a lot of just so much setup for the future of like, okay, this gotta be explained, that gotta be explained. I remember Kishimoto saying in an interview that he was very, very regretful that in the beginning of Naruto he didn't set up a lot of things, he didn't pre-plan a lot of things, so that later on, aha, this was meant for this from whatever. So again, we have that. But the professor has a mafuba, if you a la Dragon Ball Super, a sealing technique essentially that he created specifically to do a suicide mission, essentially to seal off Ata inside of him. That was freaking crazy. Like, yo, this series just did a whole 180. It was low-key, yeah, it was kind of slow and boring for a few chapters. And it went from that to, we got a Mafuba seal. Ata didn't completely get sealed away, but he got, like, ripped up into, like, he's just a half a torso and an arm and shit like that. Freaking insane. And then chapter 12 is where I went, okay, I can't hate on Hachimaru anymore. The hate must die. Well, I mean, at the start of the chapter, I couldn't completely say that because we had some beautiful color pages. And Ata goes to slash Hachimaru, and as a great father. Like, I love the bond. I love how this is different from Shonen, where it completely excludes the main character's parents. Like, you know, Naruto didn't have his dad was dead. He did the exact opposite. Maybe that was intentional. If Kishimoto made a main character that had no parents and had a father that Minato left Naruto out, you know, in a really bad predicament, he wanted a very, very protective father. So we got that Furuta jumps and takes a slash to the back. On top of already he was weakened from using this sealing technique that was inside of him. He gets slashed in the back as well, protecting his son. So you could tell that Kishimoto definitely really wanted to show this is a good father that really cared about his son. And he did a freaking incredible job. I'm not gonna lie, when Daruma said he needed like 2 to 3 minutes to recover and that he even had to go to sleep, part of me was laughing about the sleep part, but it also kind of reminded me of like when Goku told Vegeta, I need 1 minute so I could get my ki back so I could take out Kid Buu. That's kind of what it reminded me of, except Daruma, after those 2 to 3 minutes, he actually eventually puts in work. And then the flashback, which really, like, it's been tugging at the heartstrings, this series. Like, you know, again, I keep on going back to it that people were really going in on this series, but you get the flashback where Hachimaru was, again, a really, really bad crybaby in the past, and you've seen where his father couldn't even go to the store to get medicine without this dude freaking out and crying his eyes out. So it's showing that despite in the beginning of the series, you know, once Hachimaru got disconnected, he was still like a liar and a sniveling little brat. He already had came a long way. We just didn't know it yet, because that was a far cry from even that little kid that was crying for his father. And the valuable lesson that his father gave him, like, I really hope that this series picks up, because it could do good for the youth in the real world, to be honest with you, where he says, yo, even when you're feeling sad, you put on a brave front. I am brave. I can do this. And that is such a great freaking message, and I loved it, honestly. Like, that's some shit that little kids that get into the series, let's just say, it'll give them some good courage, you know what I mean? He gave his son courage. It's showing how much this father gave to his son already. And then after that, when Hachi finally says, yo, he apologizes to Anne, he steps forward to Ata, pulls out his sword and everything, I was like, character development, 12 chapters. How can you hate on this series now? How, Sway? How? You ain't got the answers. And don't get me wrong, he does get Shrek'd at first. Like, bro, he gets his hand cut off. It looks like his face got fucking slashed and melted down. Like, Ata's not playing, bro. Ata is such a freaking beast. He's turned this series around so much. But then you even get to a point like, yo, Hachimaru's dodging Ata's attacks little by little. And obviously, again, because people are going to be like, wait, how's this sniveling little brat? Remember, this is a dude that is just basically like a torso and an arm and a head. Like, yeah, he's not nowhere close. Like, come on now. If Hachimaru can at least do that after being around Daruma this time, like, come on, what is he good for? Because I know people are probably going to be like, oh my god, like, how is Hachimaru even standing 1 foot against him? Like, come on, bro, he's a torso. And then he even gets stabbed straight through the stomach jumping in front of Anne, and that's where I knew, like, I can't hate on him no more. Well, that wasn't. There's been so many moments already, but that was just another defining moment that we got major character development. He actually protected the princess. So, you know, it gave Daruma, for example, like, oh, wow, so I know now that this kid has courage. Like, there we go. And it was, again, going back to everything that his father gave him. It's really showing that whatever happens with Furuta, whether he survives or not, he definitely raised his son well. Maybe he sheltered him for his reasons, obviously, like, look at what happened, but he was still raising his son the best that he could. And then at the end of that chapter, of course, he went straight for Ata's neck. He went for the jugular, baby. Like, the action in this series, pretty freaking hype, bro. Again, we're how many? 13? And then with chapter 13, Ata gives Hachimaru props. He's like, yo, okay, you ain't that much of a sniveling little bitch, I see. Like, hey, good job, bro. And yeah, like, that's kind of, I think, the audience in a way. I think a lot of times when authors bring in villains, it's kind of like, in a way, a silent way of acknowledging or just any type of shit talking in general is acknowledging what the fans felt. And a lot of what the fans felt was what Ata said, like, okay, I'll give you a little props, bro. Yeah, alright. And then he says, you're quick on your feet, unlike the other 7. So, with the revelation at the end of the chapter, let's start connecting it, because obviously at the end of the chapter, we know there's like a million Hachimarus or whatever. Well, not a million, there's, 7 other ones. So, Hachimaru has way more potential than all of them. Obviously, when he says something like that, that means that maybe they're slower, maybe they don't think as well, and that's probably because they weren't raised with the love of a parent. They weren't raised by Furuta. They didn't have these values. They didn't have any of this. So that's what makes him different already. This is what stands out from the rest. regarding Hachimaru and the clones. But before we jump into that, Ata also said, you weren't supposed to exist. We had 7, you were the 8th. And again, that goes back into my theory that Furuta, for whatever reason, didn't want to throw away this guy. He did not want to throw away Hachimaru. He created an 8th one. I don't know why he did it, what was the reason why he made him blonde on top of all that, but that's Hachimaru's the reason why Furuta left that organization, which seemed like it was bad anyway, obviously, if they're trying to create these artificial keys. If the whole point is that you need to use the real keys, creating artificial keys means that they're up to no good and they're trying to do things in an unnatural order. And bro, when Daruma did, what was it, a Star Crusher, which basically was like a giant Raikiri, it looked like Raikiri, the electric dragon technique that Sasuke used against Itachi, that was basically what Daruma used on what was left of Ata to completely wipe him out. And yo, we 13 chapters and we're getting battles like that. Maybe you could argue, yo, we going really quick with this, but I think in today's society, and this is Kishimoto's answer to the times, in 2019, we cannot do what we did in the 80s and the 90s and even the early 2000s, where we got very small setup if we want to blow up. Maybe that's Kishimoto's mindset. Don't get me wrong, some series do that, but Kishimoto's like, I'm going to get all of the kiddos from this generation to rock with my shit. And that's how he did it, because that shit was so freaking sick. Like, yo, Daruma versus Ata. And we see that Hachimaru's father is basically on death's door. They got him hooked to a respirator, and he really went all in because his organs disappeared from using that technique. It's freaking crazy. Like, I'll straight up say, like, that was like Mafuba in the stomach. Ata was like the Saiyan arrival. There's a lot of Dragon Ball Z inspiration in this, but in a good way, because it's still doing its own completely different thing. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying it copied. There's a slight inspiration, and it's really good inspiration, because this shit has been hype for like 3 or 4 chapters now. And then lastly, of course, we got the hologram of Ata, because this dude is like, you can't keep a good dog down, because dude is like, he got back again. This time he's a hologram just to talk shit and say, yeah, you ain't nothing special. Let me show you something real quick. And we see, of course, all of the Hachimaru clones or the other 7 keys, and they're like, hey, we're brothers, bro. I can't wait to see where this is all gonna go. Obviously, from what Ata said, they're probably nowhere near as, or don't have as much potential. Maybe they might be stronger than Hachimaru now, I don't know, but he said that early on in the chapter, Hachimaru was a lot quicker on his feet than the other 7, which again, that's from the lessons of his father. So they're probably, even if they're strong, they're probably not as bright or as passionate or have that special thing that Hachimaru has, because Hachimaru's a special one. And he says that he will return, so we haven't seen the last of Ata. I can't wait to see more of this organization that he's a part of. Why did the father leave it to begin with? Is he gonna survive? There's so many freaking awesome things. Daruma's ultimate potential, I want to see that at some given point, like, you know, his true form, his true nature. This manga has turned around a lot, and I am very, very happy to say that if you're a fan of Naruto, you're a fan of the way Kishimoto writes, I think he stepped it up. He had to set things up and do things in a smaller fashion in the beginning, but ever since Ata showed up, and maybe it might slow down a little bit again, but the manga is just plot twist, awesome fights. It's improved dramatically. Kind of curious what you guys think about this though. For people that have not checked out Samurai 8, that I sell you on it. Again, I don't know what the future holds for us, but I will say that it's made a major turnaround. Things is getting really exciting, and I don't think Naruto was as hype as this in the first 13. There's moves in this alone that Naruto didn't do until Shippuden. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying it's better than Naruto. There's 700 chapters in Naruto. I'm just saying, like, that first volume, I don't even know if we got Suzawaza and Haku yet. So with this first volume and the second volume, yeah, things are spicy, and I'm really excited. Like, Samurai 8 is the shit, and I think Kishimoto is onto something with this one. I think it's gonna be a big fan base. And if you are a follower of this, for starters, what do you think is the whole secret right there, that there's 7 other clones of Hachimaru? What makes Hachimaru special compared to the other ones? What are you predicting regarding this organization? Why did his father, Hachimaru's father, leave him? And why did Daruma also disown this guy Ata? Like, why are they trying to create these keys? Why don't they just try and go get the keys? So many theories and predictions right now to be had. But yeah, your overall thoughts and expectations for the future of Samurai 8. This shit is cooking fire. So is this the point where everybody jumps on the bandwagon now? Because baby, once this gets an anime, I already see that this is going to have a huge fan base. But on top of that, if they're reading this one 14 chapters in, we got what feels like a Kushina x Minato death all over again, with a dark twist. And again, we're only, about 14 chapters. Like, Samurai 8 has a very bright future, baby. Let's talk about it.
Whether Facebook, Twitter, or the two, make sure to steer clear, cause I'm coming through like.
So this chapter, we get bombshell after bombshell on top of one of the most emotional moment thus far in this series. And honestly, I see Masashi Kishimoto what he's trying to do, because there's so many things that he's setting up for later on down the road, but he's also giving us stuff for now, and he's also just playing with the feels, because there's not many series that can make you feel like, damn, son, this early on. Make you feel like you know these characters already. Make you feel a certain way about them with what happened at the end of chapter, again, I want to say it's 14, with Furuta, aka the professor, aka Hachimaru's father. But let's start from the beginning. So we got the 7 other brothers to Hachimaru. The main one, I want to say he's an older brother to Hachimaru from what he proclaims, Ikaku, and they start dropping bombshells on Hachimaru, which you could immediately see that this is leading towards something a lot grander, because based on what Ata said, because Daruma accused, like, so you're trying to open Pandora's box. They want both boxes, I want to say, but they're trying to open Mandela, I want to say, box. So if they're focusing in on that box alone, I'm imagining there's probably going to be bigger villains, grander villains that are focusing in on both boxes, trying to open both boxes, because there's a lot here to digest. For starters, finding out that Hachimaru was an accident with a tragic past. Like, people were like, okay, obviously, for example, since Naruto, we had Boruto, it's hard to sympathize with him because he had a pretty good life, other than the fact that he's sad his father's not around. Not the most tragic in the world. Let's do a rundown. Hachimaru, on top of what we already knew up until this point, very, very sick kid, didn't have much of a life. His father kept him in, finally got to have somewhat of a life, and then, shit really goes bad. It was tragic, right? Then in this chapter, we find out, so he's an accident. He was feeding off of the other 7's energy, but he was an accident that died, basically on the path of this professor, aka Hachimaru's father, trying to create these keys to unlock this box. But he was, again, not supposed to be. Like the other ones, you see they all got black hair. You see that they're all slightly different. Hachimaru was actually raised by the professor, and finding out the darkness of what this character really is, because it's crazy. You just look at it like, imagine a kid that age finding out, so not only did I already have it rough, but I was an accident. I was not meant to be around. In fact, my father isn't even really my father. He just created me alongside a bunch of others, and I was basically like the weakling, the runt of the group. But then on top of all that his father tried to kill him once, so that he could disrupt the balance, because if he would have killed him, then they wouldn't be able to open up the box. They wouldn't be able to do, their plans would have been all thwarted. I'm kind of curious what's different between what he tried to do back then. Maybe he only had 7 at that time or something. I don't know. I want to say he was the 8th one or whatever, but maybe they only had 7 and then he came back to life, or he survived, because we find out that not only did he try to kill him, but then when he couldn't bring himself to do it, then he just grabbed the kid and ran away to another place, and that's where it leads the story into him raising Hachimaru to where we're at right now. Like, even the little baby Hachimaru picture reminded me clearly of Naruto when he was a kid. Clear as day, that's where the design came from, and just seeing it was like, man, just imagine finding all that shit out, and Hachimaru's still a kid. Granted, he balled up, you know what I'm saying? He went up against Ata. He's starting to show signs of he's a real samurai. He's the real deal. He's the real McCoy. But that's dark. Like, people were mad at Kishimoto for not making Boruto a lot darker or having that much of a struggle. This kid has had it bad from day zero. Day zero, baby, because that's rough. That is messed up. And pretty much they need him to die. And again, that's why I'm like, well, what's the difference? Because they need him to die in order to correct the balance so that they can open up that box. So again, I'm imagining maybe that they had all they needed at the time, or they just needed one more, something like that. Now that they already have the 7, he's the 8th, they can get rid of him, and then they'll be able to open up the box. So you can see that Hachimaru's life is very, very pivotal to stopping their plan. Hachimaru dies and he falls off a freaking building and drops dead. It's over. They get to open up the box. So they're going to be coming for his life. And it's kind of like giving me vibes of like the Akatsuki, when it's like they needed Naruto's chakra so bad, which Naruto would have in turn, of course, died if they extracted the QB completely from him. They need him to die in order to be able to get into the box. And then finding out why they want to get into the box. Basically Ata and them, which I'm wondering, is Ata the highest up in this? Or I'm imagining Ata is like probably a lead soldier, not a foot soldier, but probably a lead soldier. I don't think it's just all Ata, because this is a big organization. I'm imagining he's like hired muscle. He looks like he's been through the ringer or whatever. But seeing that basically they want to become gods essentially and change the universe and this whole thing back to, or restore it to how it used to be, and kind of just become gods. Like, holy shit. So their goal is to become gods. That's a pretty freaking ambitious goal. And at the end of the day, Hachimaru's life is what stops them from getting there. So his life is going to be in danger as long as this organization is after him, which it's Akatsuki, but with a very, very crazy twist, a very different twist, taking a whole different turn. And it's like, yo, he got 7 brothers that all want to kill him, on top of an organization, on top of his pops seemingly dying. And again, before we get to that tragic moment, I know, we get some world building, even more building, that there's 5 schools. There's the school that I guess Daruma is the head of. There's Ata's organization, and then there's 3 more that they're going to go after. So these people, they're ruthless. I'm imagining, unless they're like, because I'm guessing that this is going to be an ongoing thing. This is the main villain, this organization, and Ata is just a part of it. There's probably a lot more that are going to try and come and hunt down Hachimaru and everything, but this big organization is going to be the big villain of this entire series, I'm imagining, or the big antagonist. So I'm assuming we're going to see at some given point this organization hunting down the other 3 schools to take them out so that they could completely wipe everything out, and again open up the box and become gods. And another setup, because Kishimoto, he ain't making the mistake he made last time. I remember in an interview came out and said, I didn't like that I didn't leave behind little things that I could build on later. This one, when Ata's like, yo, I'm gonna leave you something, because you're gonna lose everything, Daruma, you're gonna lose everything, but I'm gonna leave you something. We see like some sparkles dripping down that he left behind. I'm kind of curious what that was. Did he leave him like some energy? Did he leave him a threat? Like, again, another big foreshadowing piece that I'm sure will be revealed later on, but you can just see that on top of the big plot twist and the big reveal of Hachimaru's true origin, you know, the professor, who he really is to Hachimaru. He's basically just his creator, not his real father. Although, honestly, the way I look at things, your father is the person that, you know, even if it's a surrogate father, whoever raised you, whoever loved you like that, whoever taught you the way you need to be and everything, that is his father. So it's I guess, semantics on the words and, you know, whatnot. But that is his father, just not biologically, even though they're robots and he kind of recreated himself. And yeah. And it's crazy how selfless, if you think about it, Hachimaru's father really was, because he knew doing this, trying to take Ata out and everything, was going to leave him immobilized and he was going to die because his organs disappeared, and they want to, you know, rescue him or whatever, but there's no way to do it because it starts raining and, you know, it's just not going to work. And he knew that. So you can see, stand up fellow. Makes me wonder what led him to that organization to begin with. If their motives were so bad, was he working with them and it was all fine and dandy? He didn't understand the stakes at hand of like, yo, they want to become gods and wipe out the world and change everything. Or like, why would you work with an evil organization like that if their goals is just so messed up and wrong? And also, if he was Daruma's student, what led Ata to this group? Like, why are these people joining up for this organization if they're just so freaking bad when they were once good? Like, obviously they had some sort of fall into depravity, or they were tricked. And I mean, even when the professor is like, yo, everything they said is true, you know what I'm saying? Everything they said is true, and I once tried to kill you and all that. Incredible moment. And, you know, we waited, I don't even know, it was like, what, 300-400 chapters to really find out all that stuff in Naruto. Kishimoto's like, yo, in 2019, these kids don't got that attention span to get to that point to find out these big things. Let's do it now. But I'm sure there's still a lot more mystery left to go, because he's just leaving little breadcrumbs here and there. Okay, Ata left a little thing as a goodbye to Daruma. We still don't really know all about Daruma's, you know, backstory and whatnot. There's a lot of things that he's leaving behind, but something like that, absolute tragic. I could see that an episode like this is going to be a game changer when the anime comes out. Like, people are going to rock with it. When Ata shows up, they're going to really rock with it. When this goes down and Hachimaru's pops, Furuta, the professor, dies, that's when everybody's gonna be like, oh my god, Samurai 8, oh my god, this is the real success of the Naruto, screw Boruto, oh my god. And I've been reading a lot of manga with fathers that made mistakes, because I was reading Attack on Titan, and you know, Grisha, if you're an Attack on Titan fan, you know, he made his mistakes, but him being able to seemingly pass on, the professor saying, you know, at least I get to die an honest man, I got to tell my son the truth, I got to tell you what was going on, what I did, the wrongs I made. It's not gonna make up for it. I did try to kill you, I did screw over that whole organization that initially I was helping to create this weapon, basically, to open up this box that God knows what's gonna happen. You know, they trying to become gods, but at least I get to die knowing that I told the truth. And it's like, it's very, very bittersweet. The panels where Hachimaru is crying, where, you know, the father says, yo, now you got to do it so that you can be a strong samurai and protect this woman and protect the universe against Ata. It's an incredible moment. If they reverse his death, I ain't gonna lie, it's gonna be like, yo, why would you kill this character so soon and then reverse it? I really hope Kishimoto doesn't do that. And he's not notorious for doing things like that. I mean, we had Edo Tensei, but they, you know, they all died again anyway. But like, hopefully this stays as a staple, because this is a huge character developing moment for the main character. His father's death is going to change him completely. Like, I'm imagining he'd still be silly, but all of that rude shit that he was doing early on, not listening to Daruma, not really giving a shit, just, I'm gonna be a samurai, but I'm not going to do anything righteous or justice or anything of that nature to be a samurai. I think that all dies here along with his father. And even the subtleties of his father saying, it wasn't you that was holding yourself back. It wasn't those circumstances. It was me. Very powerful stuff. And then it ends off with the father saying, go ahead, do that ritual. So I get confused. I'm not gonna lie. There's a lot to digest with this story. What ritual Hachi still needed to do or whatnot, but he's about to do it. So very, very powerful stuff. Best chapter of the whole series thus far. 14 chapters in. And again, like every chapter has been topping it. I don't know what the next arc is going to be able to do. Maybe we'll run into one of the brothers at some given point. You know, of the 7. I don't know if we're going to fight all of them at once. How many people are in this organization. When we're going to see Ata next. But I will say right now that this is once again on the path. Like, don't get me wrong, Naruto was hype in the beginning, the Zabuzan Haku arc, but I don't think on this level of writing, plot twists, or none of that did we get that in the beginning of Naruto. Zabuzan Haku, great arc, but did it reveal all of these things about Naruto, or did we take a while to get there? Look at how much we already know about Hachimaru in this short amount of time. Granted, that could be a bad thing, because, okay, well, what's left for down the road? Or is this going to be a short series? Kishimoto said he's going for 50 to 100 chapters, I think. He said about like 10 volumes. Well, it's like, for right now, that's still ways off from where we're at right now. So very curious to see how it's going to go down. Kind of curious what you guys thought about this chapter, though. How did you feel about that ending? Did it impact you? Do you feel as though that's a mini or a better or a darker version of the Minato Kushina death? Don't get me wrong. We had a lot of time to spend with these characters, Naruto and them, to really feel a certain way. I still felt the way 14 chapters in. Granted, maybe not as strong, but it was dark. It was well thought out. It was very tragic and sad. And hopefully this is a very, very pivotal milestone for Hachimaru to develop into becoming a true samurai. There's so much lore in here. Akala, the god of war, so much in this one. But hands down, 9 to a 10 out of 10 for this chapter. This is for a brand new story. Incredible. I just hope that Kishimoto ain't emptying out the bag real quickly and early on, because this is like chapter 50, chapter 100, chapter 400 type of shit that we're getting this early. But it's going to build a fan base. If this doesn't build a fan base with, you know, the manga and the anime comes out and that doesn't build a fan base, then I don't know what people are reading and what they're watching, because this was really good and again shows so much potential for the future of this story, Samurai 8, The Tale of Hachimaru. I said it before and I'll say it again. I really truly feel as though Boruto started off with some of the ideas that ultimately Masashi Kishimoto wanted to use for his new manga, Samurai 8. I mean, man, and we're getting hotter and hotter. Up to chapter 35 was the latest one as of the recording of this video. The fandom is starting to pick up slowly but surely. Maybe sales aren't the greatest, but boy, is this story cooking with some gas now, between the Benkei stuff, Fudo Mio, like, let's talk about it. No matter how you move, get it done. No matter how you move, get it done. So, a lot of the previous arc has wrapped up and we're seemingly entering into a whole other animal. And again, I hope I'm pronouncing his name right. Benkei, the big ruse that he pulled, tricking Sanda, seeing Ryu. Like, there was a lot of shit that went down. Honestly, my favorite part in the last few chapters, though, I gotta say, hands down, Daruma's transformation into that Hokage Naruto-esque looking look that he has, his, human form, his real form, because Fudomyo, such a deep and complex thing, and everything that he said, I was really trying to pay attention, but it was just like, it felt vague, but very mysterious and amazing at the same time, because what do you really say is Daruma's true form? Is it this sleeping cat? Is it truly the human form at this point? So many different things, but hands down, when he transformed and he looked epic as hell, that was just like priceless. Like, oh my gosh, when that hits, when this gets an anime, because regardless of sales of what, I truly believe that Shonen Jump is not going to throw out Masashi Kishimoto, their prized writer that they still to this day are making money off of his old work with Boruto coming in and shit like that. They're going to allow this series to get to where it needs to go. I mean, even you go back to like a series like Demon Slayer. Demon Slayer didn't pop off until all the way when the anime came out. Then now it's 40 million plus sales, surpassing My Hero Academia and everything. So I think they're going to allow this series to get to anime, and when it does, that scene where Daruma transforms, oh my gosh. And just seeing the complexities of, like, Sanda, him being tricked, and seeing that Benkei was responsible for the death of his parents, and so many different things, seeing that he looked like multiple times, like after a certain point I was like, alright Sanda, make up your mind, are you betraying these people or not? When he was about to like chop off Ryu's head, seemingly looked like he was about to stab him and all sorts of shit, I was like, okay, you finally made up your mind. And it was great. It was great, honestly, seeing that there's still consequences, because that whole force is there to basically take them to somewhat of a trial because of them being involved in all this. And obviously, Sanda got off. I'll keep it real, like, and that's probably one of Kishimoto's things, is that he doesn't really, like, you could argue it's a flaw when characters cross the line, which Sanda did, to be honest with you. He did a lot of messed up shit and almost, cost him a lot of different things, and he was a bandit, and he even tricked Ryu into kind of being a bandit with him, and he's kind of getting off somewhat scot-free, because as long as he's a part of this mission, basically they're allowing him to, like, okay, that's your punishment in a sense. And I think maybe it should have been a little more severe, but then again, he was also a young kid that was tricked into all this, so you got to take into account, like, you could throw the argument like Sanda got off easy, but at the same time, like, did he really? He the guy that killed his parents had him working for him for years upon years and shit like that. So it's a slippery slope there with that one, but man, that was a nice wrap up. And then where we at right now, which I'm like, the history of this story is so complex, but it's so good. It's like, yeah, you got to pay attention to the detail. And I think, again, once we get an anime, it'll probably simplify certain aspects like the H particles and so much other shit. But it's just like vastly amazing. Like, this doesn't feel like, to a certain degree anyway, a Shonen Jump title, because it feels as though a lot of kids, this will go over their heads. Like, the kids in Japan that are reading this magazine is gonna go over their heads, because there's just so much detail, especially again when Hachimaru takes the program and starts downloading the program from the sleeping Daruma, which I think that's cool too. Like, because Daruma looks like, when he goes into that transformation, that is really freaking hacks. I'm gonna call it his Hokage Naruto transformation, because that's what I see. Like, even when we see the panels where they're inside the program waiting for it to load up and shit like that, to me it's like Daruma in his human form looks like Hokage Naruto, and Hachimaru looks like Boruto, especially some of the little comedic moments, which, yeah, it's whatever. You gotta throw in some comedy sometimes. I mean, even Fudomyo kind of reminds me of the Sage of Six Paths, Hagoromo. Like, so there's definitely inspiration, and I'd be a hypocrite if I didn't call out a little bit of, like, okay, so you're kind of reusing some designs, because I did go in very heavily on Eden Zero for reusing art and shit like that. And mind you, it is their art style, but it just feels as though with Samurai 8, like, he's taking, which Hokage Naruto, some people didn't like the design because of the hairstyle change, and people don't really care for Boruto. So I feel as though he took those ideas and concepts and elevated them. He made, like, the Hokage Naruto design look cooler with Daruma. He made Boruto, which, it's whatever. I think with the whole karma shit, that he kind of looks cooler in certain aspects, but he took that design and made him look cool as shit with Hachimaru, and he's having Hachimaru develop at a fast rate, still keeping core elements of him, like he don't want to hear long ass explanations, so that's still there. The bratty, whatever you want to call it, generation of being impatient and shit, but still elevating and developing. And that's why I feel as though I don't have that much of a problem with the reusing of character designs, because he's taking ideas and making them better. It's not like, and again, I don't want to put Eden Zero down, because from what I've read, it's been pretty freaking solid too, but that didn't really feel like he was elevating designs, just kind of mixing and matching. With this one, it's like, yo, you doing your shit. And then getting more context of the universe and, just the plot and everything with Fudo Myo, which again, it was weird that he showed up because he wasn't a part of the program. And even Daruma, it shows that despite Daruma being the sensei, he doesn't have all the answers. A lot of shonen, whenever you got the sensei, like if if the main character is Hachimaru and Daruma is the sensei, he's supposed to be like all well-knowing, but it even kind of humbles and dwarfs him in comparison when Fudo Myo is talking about all these things, and even Daruma's like, but what? It puts him to a perspective of like, yeah, he's a sensei, but he still was not even completely all the way where you would think he would know everything or have all the answers. And we get to see what Kala looks like, which is, I want to say, Ata's leader and the person that is responsible for all this. If you think about it, to simplify it in a more subtle and simple way, essentially it would be like Fudo Myo is God, he created everything, and Kala is the devil, wants to destroy everything and recreate it in his image that he sees fit. Like, that's the best way to simplify it. That's what it truly feels like, because in the latest chapter 35, Fudo Myo just goes in explaining like, yo, I created this and that and that and this, and yeah, I guess you could argue I'm God, but he never really goes 100% specific on exactly, like whenever they ask a question, he kind of gives a vague, almost feels like he's talking in riddles in a sense, to the point where again it humbles Daruma that he's like, damn, but what? And when they start talking about the two boxes and how you can't find them and you can't see them unless you're truly looking for them and you're truly looking to see what's inside, and when you're ready you'll be able to find and see them. And it was just like, man, I don't understand why Samurai 8 gets the hate that it does. I'm so glad I've been seeing little by little, steadily, the fandom is continuing to push forth and get bigger and grander, especially with the last couple chapters, seeing Ata essentially having a planet blown up, but this little girl, which I'm sure she's going to be very integral to things, maybe she's special or something, they had rescued her at some given point, but I think it was a different fraction. That's where I kind of got a little bit of confused in a sense, because at first I thought that Ata's people grabbed the little girl and rescued her before the planet was blown up, but I think it was Ata himself and his mentor, the person that is kind of like his boss, were the ones that blew up the planet, and these people that rescued the little girl are from a different faction. Again, maybe I'm kind of misunderstanding it, because it is a complex series, but that's what I love about it. It makes me think more, and I think more about the series as time goes on, like, wait a minute, so what did that mean, and what did that mean, and what did that mean, and then we even got a stats sheet for these characters, for Daruma and Hachimaru. And you see Daruma's stats is off the freaking chain. It's like whoop, whoop, whoop. But the one thing that obviously, and they even brought it up too, and Daruma said, I've never seen somebody with that high stats of the gravity. The gravity percentage for Hachimaru was through the freaking roof. I want to say it even was surpassed Daruma's. So that's going to be very integral and important to how Hachimaru moves forward and how strong he's going to be, because right now he's a weakling. You look at the stats, some of them is 0, some of them is like 7, and this dude's is like 1500 and shit. So you see that Hachimaru has a long distance to go, but that doesn't necessarily mean that he's going to lose, because we've seen his will. Hachimaru has allowed him to beat opponents that are way stronger than him by using strategy and just overall having, and praying for him and so many different things. And honestly, again, me even making a video, unless I really dove in and had like a whole script and everything, doesn't do this series justice. This shit is fantastic. The Benkei arc was great with Ryu and Sanda's retribution and all of that stuff, and then now this essentially God and Satan type of stuff that's going on with Fudo Myo and Kala, and getting more insight into the box while we're waiting for the program to download. This would make, honestly, Samurai 8, if they made this into a really, really good RPG video game, this would be a fucking amazing game to play. And who knows, maybe in the future that's some of the plans and why Masashi Kishimoto made it like this and very complex and everything. Like, the stats alone is like, That would be such a fun RPG. And, you know, Fudomyo and everything. Like, Curious what you guys think about this, though. How did you feel about the Sanda arc with Benkei? How did you feel about the planet? What's going on there with Ata and this dude blowing up the planet? Who was that? Those people that saved the little girl from the planet. And unfortunately, you know, she had to see her whole family die. That shit. Woo! And how you feeling about Samurai 8 as it stands right now? Daruma's transformation, Hachimaru's stats, Fudomyo, Kala. It's like there's so much. Each chapter feels as though it could at least be like 2 chapters. And that's something that I really love about this series. And your overall thoughts and expectation for the future of the series, 36 and beyond. I don't know where this story's going. It's pretty unpredictable. And that's what makes it so freaking great. It's just different from the norm. You have some of your little shonen elements, some of your little shonen cliches, but it still tries its best to be fresh and exhilarating and complex, and that's what makes it so special. So one of the things the Naruto series has been criticized for very heavily, and even the creator himself, Masashi Kishimoto, has came out and said was his weakness, was the romance in the story. A lot of the characters, their relationships, the way they were established in the romantic aspect definitely didn't feel as though it had enough depth and kind of felt a little inorganic. It didn't feel like it was pushed correctly. And you know, the creator himself, Masashi Kishimoto, has came out on several different interviews and said that that's one of his weaknesses. He doesn't know how to really do the romance side of things. He didn't understand how to write Sakura from that perspective, and it definitely showed. But the creator of Naruto is back with his new series, Samurai 8, The Tale of Hachimaru, and boy did he step up his pen game in that department. Let's talk about it.
No matter how you move, get it done. No matter how you move, get it done.
Okay, so 39 chapters in Samurai 8, The Tale of Hachimaru is continuing to come out swinging. Not only is the action incredible, not only has the art stepped its game up, but the depth in the relationship between 2 of the main protagonists has really showcased Masashi Kishimoto's ability to write romance and how he leveled up from the Naruto series. Now, in case you don't know about Samurai 8, one of the aspects of the series is that the samurai of the story, and in particular the main character Hachimaru, they essentially have a princess that is kind of like a destined thing in a way. Like, that's how they get some of their power. The princess goes on the journey, the princess prays for them, and it's kind of like a staple to each samurai in order to be truly great, to have a promised princess. And one of the things about the relationship that for a bit was, it was kind of like, hey, okay, so this is his princess, he's supposed to protect her, and it was, simple as. It didn't really dive deep into, well, why are they together? Is it just that, hey, that's the samurai and that's the princess? And Masashi Kishimoto in the last few chapters leading up to, we're roughly 39 chapters, I want to say 40 chapters into the manga, is that the development between the two has just been pushed very heavily. And again, it just showcases coming from Naruto, where again, Masashi Kishimoto admitted he was not good in that department. It showed. I mean, Naruto and Hinata's development as a couple really could have been done better. It was like not up until the last moment that Naruto reciprocated feelings in a movie at that. It wasn't even in the main manga. And then Sakura and Sasuke's relationship, it was like, hey, he stabbed her through the chest and then she gave him a kid. So there's definitely problematic aspects when you look at those relationships. But then you come to Samurai 8, and boy, Masashi Kishimoto just knows now. He's understood his era and he's making waves. Because one of the characters that was recently introduced to the story, Goku, a character named Goku, he kind of edged into making somewhat of a, not necessarily this, but like kind of a love triangle, because he kind of made Hachimaru start feeling a little bit insecure about his relationship with Anne, the main female protagonist. She's supposed to be, promised to Hachimaru, and up until this point they've been going on a journey and he's been trying his best to protect her, but it started making her question certain aspects, because her relationship with Hachimaru, one of the things that kind of made her get drawn to him was, wow, he reminds me of my brother. And she went through a lot with her brother. Her brother actually committed suicide, trying to become a true samurai, but it didn't work out and he died. And it was one of the things where it's like, well, that's my protector. And with Hachimaru, from his point of view, it was like, well, that's my promised princess. I gotta protect the princess. This character Goku and how he was kind of interacting with Anne made Hachimaru jealous and made him feel like, well, damn, I'm good too. What's going on? And kind of made them distant for a small bit of time. And then it started bringing up the question to Anne, like, Do you like me? Do you want to protect me? Or do you want to protect the princess? Is it just about the title and what I bear and all of that? Or is it that you truly rock with me? And that's definitely a level of depth already that just in the original Naruto story never really was delved into. Like, again, in the last minute, you know, Naruto got with Hinata and he liked Sakura for the illest minute. It was like, okay, you know, let's smack this all together at the very end. We're 39 chapters in the story, and Hachimaru is dealing with real substance within this relationship, because they both have their doubts and their insecurities. While one, Anne, is looking at it like, yo, do you like me? Or is it just that you feel like you're obligated to like me because I'm your princess? And then on Hachimaru's side of things, he's like, well, yo, I'm not your brother. You know what I'm saying? I'm not going to protect you like your brother. I'm going to protect you like me, Hachimaru. Which I also felt like in a way was doubling up with the meaning with Masashi Kishimoto saying, this isn't Naruto, this is Samurai 8, baby. And I just definitely had to applaud the strides and the growth of as a writer that Masashi Kishimoto has had coming from his previous series. Don't get me wrong, Naruto mega hit. I love the relationship he has with Hinata, especially when you see little times that you do see him Boruto them together and interacting. He's like, yo, it was great that Naruto got a piece of happiness with his wife and having kids, etc., etc. But again, it just lacked substance. It didn't feel natural the way it was kind of put together. It was just like a last minute thing. With these two, they're developing as this roller coaster ride of a story continues. They're starting to understand a little more and get into, it's not just about titles, it's about you. And since we're so early in the journey as well, it feels as though it's truly building a bond. So when we go, you know, 139 chapters, 100 chapters later, assuming the series makes it, we're gonna be looking at it as, well, shit, they started addressing things about the relationship early on, so it won't just feel like it's slapped together. And it also now starts breaking away from just being like, oh, Samurai and his princess. Now it's Hachimaru and Anne. The love that they're starting to develop, the relationship that they're starting to develop is about the qualities that they like within each other, and not, again, just about preconceived notions and just like a flat surface of like, hey, this is this is that. I like that. Because to be honest with you, there's not many shonen manga that even tackle that type of idea, like with the relationships in general. Usually relationships is like a last thought when it comes to romantic relationships. It's kind of like, okay, you know, that's there, and they usually back in the day especially would just tease it and tease it and tease it, and then again, like you look at Naruto or Bleach, they at the end of the story get the relationship that was just barely teased throughout it. This one is actually confronting it head on and putting it as a central piece, because your princess, you know what I'm saying? You can't just have like, oh, that's a princess. Like, it's almost like if they didn't start addressing this, then it would kind of be like one of those things like when like kings marry off their sons to women and shit like that, because again, there would be no like connection between the two. And I feel as though that character Goku was very, very important to piecing that together. You needed to add a little bit to make Hachimaru feel as though like, whoa, you know, maybe this can't last forever. Maybe it's not just because she's my fated princess that she's going to be mine. I need to look at it further and deeper. And it just shows his development as a character. Like, we're only 39 chapters in, and he went from a sniveling, snot-nosed brat to this dude is looking freaking cool. You know what I'm saying? And he's manning up already and getting into this relationship with Anne and looking at it from different perspectives. That is character development and a half. And then likewise with Anne, she's had this weight on her shoulders and felt as though like, man, you know, is it because of just he reminds me of my brother? So diving into that and kind of tackling those issues is great. It showcases Samurai 8 is Kishimoto, probably his gem. Honestly, we love Naruto and it's nostalgic, and you know, I still love the Boruto manga at this particular point. Anime is a different story. Manga's you know, it's awesome and all that jazz, but Samurai 8 is just showcasing Masashi Kishimoto's maturity as an author, as a creative, and how he's starting to understand like, yo, I can't just slap these things together at the last minute anymore. I did that in a 15-20 year run of a series. This one, he's doing the groundwork now, so it feels more believable. So 50 chapters from now, when things is happening, it's not just, I need to protect the princess, like if we're in some 80s Rescue the Princess manga. No, I need to protect my girlfriend, I need to protect my wife, I need to protect
And again, I gotta applaud and praise that. Like, shonen manga, minus maybe like Fairy Tail, don't really address relationships in a romantic aspect because like they don't want to shoo away, you know, the young boy readers. But I think that's all relative, especially with this type of story and the structure that was set forth of, you know, having the princess being important, your master, and all of that jazz. Is like, yeah, let's get in the nitty gritty of it. Let's develop these relationships. Let's show the development of these characters in these relationships, so it's not just like, oh, you know, again, like some 80s rescue the princess shit. Like, nah, we've evolved beyond that. But I'm curious what you guys think about this, though. For those that don't read Samurai 8, you should read Samurai 8. It's freaking awesome. How do you feel about those relationships back in the day where Naruto and Hinata, how they got together in a movie that wasn't in the manga, and then likewise with Sakura and Sasuke's relationship and how they kind of got together at the last minute despite all the dramatic shit that Sasuke did? Do you feel as though they felt any type of genuine? I feel as though, to a certain degree, if you look at Sasuke and Sakura's relationship, you could argue that that kind of shows a resemblance, at least before Boruto. Like, after you get into Boruto and you see truly how Sasuke feels, is a different story, but it almost felt like a modern day toxic relationship that led to some happiness, I guess, down the road. And Naruto and Hinata's, it just felt like too last minute, despite Hinata having these feelings. Naruto, when he first said, yeah, I love Hinata, he thought he was talking about, like, I love the way I love eating ramen. And for Samurai 8 readers that have read Naruto, how do you feel coming from that, seeing those relationships, the romance and how they were handled, coming to this and seeing how Hachimaru and Anne's relationship is developing? Do you see the growth? Do you see where Masashi Kishimoto has rose to the occasion and grew as an author? Because I see it and it's awesome and I had to praise it. I mean, it's just the evolution of an author, and coming from a big hit series and trying to do it again and doing it at this level, I rocks with it. Okay, so the new series from the creator of Naruto, Samurai 8, The Tale of Hachimaru, now with the latest chapter, chapter 41. I ain't gonna lie, it feels critical right now. It feels like a scary time to be a Samurai 8 fan, because despite the level of quality, like these last couple chapters, best chapters of the entirety of the series thus far, but also just stand out high quality chapters. The thing and the problem with what's going on with the manga right now is that it does seem like it's possibly being rushed and could end based on everything that's going down. It feels like we're headed towards some endgame shit. Now, there's other possibilities as well, but between low sales of the manga continuing and just all around word of mouth here and there, back and forth, things are seeming real dire and scary for the Samurai 8 manga. But damn it, is it so freaking good! Let's talk about Samurai 8, baby. I'm hype.
No matter how you move, get it done. No matter how you move, get it done.
It really sucks. I ain't gonna lie. It really feels like a bittersweet feeling right now, because I am so excited to talk about Samurai 8 right now. Like the latest events with Ata tricking Hagamichi and Daruma, and everything that's going down with Hachimaru and Anne and Nanashi, and we're gonna talk about all that. But it does feel really, really freaking scary right now. It feels as though, because the Japanese readers in particular aren't latching on to the series, that this series is going really, really quick, because we're 41 chapters in right now. The latest chapter was 41. It just dropped today as of the recording of this video anyway. And it seems as though, like, yo, we are hitting so many plot points that felt as though they were setups for, like, the end of the series, and they're happening now. Like, if you even think about it, moving forward from where we were, meeting Fudomyo, a lot of the things that happened feel as though it's like, shit, this is the end of the story coming soon. And it could be that a couple different things, and here's the idea. If it's not that Samurai 8, you know, Kishimoto has already gotten word, like, yo, we're gonna just axe this, we're gonna end it, you know, it's not picking up with the Japanese readers, etc., etc. If it's not that, then the other possibilities that come to my mind is maybe they're doing one big reset for the series. And what I mean by that is, maybe they're like, all right, you know, we're having a meeting, because if I'm not mistaken, I don't know if it's next week or the following week, Masashi Kishimoto is taking the week off for Samurai 8. Maybe Shonen Jump came and they had a conference with him and they were like, yo, we gotta shake shit up. So maybe there's a possibility that this is all going to be like a big plot point for a season 1 of the anime to end off with a giant
bang. Because if you look at it in that regard, like, yo, he's gonna reset everything. Like, he's gonna hit every plot point that was set up from chapter 1 and ram it all down. And then once we get to the next arc, it kind of feels like a whole big reset, which could be very plausible. Like, what happened, especially in the latest 2 chapters, showcase a lot of change and like, holy shit, what the hell is going on? Which, again, that could be a big thing that they're trying to do. They're gonna go out with a bang with season 1, continue, of course, the manga, but when the anime hits this is going to be humongous. Assuming that this makes it to get an anime, I 100% can say with the last couple chapters especially, there's no way in hell that this shit won't get hyped, because it feels like we've been with this manga for like 300 chapters. With everything that's going down right now, this feels like some long-running endgame shit. So it could be that they came, conference, yo, let's reset everything. Next arc that we get, Hachimaru is going to look completely different. Everything is going to feel different. The story's going to go a different direction. It could be that. It also could just be that they rushed the hell out of him to just finish his arc. It could just be as simple as like, yo, finish this arc and let's see where we go from here. We're not going to cancel you, but like, just finish all of this shit. Every plot point that you set up, just finish it, wrap it up, and let's move on to something else with this series. So there's a couple of different possibilities. I'm hoping for the one that I just mentioned before this one, where like, yo, they're gonna just make everything like kind of different, because that's a different approach if you think about it, to like make it feel like 300 plus chapter wrap up for like the first season of if it gets an anime and shit like that. So I'm hoping that it's not getting canceled. I mean, sales are looking kind of bad, to be honest with you, for the Samurai 8 manga, and it's a shame. This is top tier quality. Now that we got that out the way, let's talk a little bit. Chapter 40, Hagamichi and it's a Hagamichi, the cat dude and Daruma were basically tricked. They were sent off, or was it a dog? Anyway, Daruma and his dude were sent off, tricked by Ata, which showcases just how deadly Ata really is, how much of an awesome villain he's been thus far, like opposed to when we first met up with him, that it was basically like a fake. It wasn't even him, and he kind of got bodied in a way. Chapter 40 shows that no, Ata's not a joke. That was just like, you know, a fake. That was like a shadow clone that got bopped. It was not the real thing. You gotta think about this. It's not only just his physical ability and strength and shit like that. He outsmarted 2 freaking especially Daruma, legendary dudes. He outsmarted them, sent them to like another dimension. Then on top of that, slashes through, which, I mean, it ain't that difficult. We've seen Hachimaru's stats. Aside from his gravity power, which whatever the hell that really means, Hachimaru ain't the strongest at all. He's actually pretty freaking weak aside from his gravity power. So when Ata goes and just slashes through him like he's butter, and I was just like, yo, what the hell is going on? He kidnaps Hachimaru, kidnaps the dog, kidnaps Anne, and again, it just feels like some dark, I don't even know, it kind of felt like Star Wars in a way, especially when you see like Ata going at Anne with his hand and shit. I'm like, this feels dark. But then he got, which it really just gets progressively darker and darker, Ata having Hachimaru chained up, wired up, which is very reminiscent of when Madara and Naruto was like hooked up to that machine and he couldn't move anymore because in his older days he was getting ready to die and that was the only thing keeping him alive. He has Hachimaru hooked up to that machine, took out, it's not his samurai, so I think it's his, the key, his samurai key if I'm not mistaken, took that out of his body so he can't even regenerate anymore. So not only is he completely destroyed and damaged, Ata slashed through the, like, he kind of looks like a little bit like Daruma if you think about it now. That's kind of interesting. But it's also reminiscent of Kakashi from Naruto with the scar going straight down the eye. But yeah, that is interesting that Daruma in his real form, his Hokage Naruto-esque form, has the scar going down his eye, which again, if my theory going back to earlier in the video about them like resetting everything, think about it, if Hachimaru returns with a whole different look with a scar, that's gonna look even more badass. Oh my god, do not cancel this series, it's so good! And basically Ata tells Hachimaru, you're gonna be here for the rest of your life. I'm gonna keep you around as like a battery for your brothers, the other 7, you know, the clones, or well, technically Hachimaru is like the clone, but he's gonna keep him around as a battery so they can recharge. Anne is gonna be their princess, and essentially they're going to be his samurai, so they're gonna use his presence and his essence as like just a battery for them to be what he's supposed to be. And Ata like, yo, you scumbag ass motherfucker, like between 40 and 41 it just showed even further like, Ata, you a bad man. And honestly, 40 alone, chapter 40 alone was just dark and devastating, and I was just like, why is it going this dark? What the hell? Like, Hachimaru, all his hopes and dreams is crushed. Ata's telling him, you're never gonna see Anne again, after they just started building that relationship and shit like that. Never gonna see her again, that's it. She's our princess now, fam. We took your lady that sit in that soul, and it only leaves us with one beacon of hope. And that's the last page, which really made me even further look at it like, damn, they are rushing shit. When we see Nanashi on the way to save Hachimaru, a full-fledged samurai at this particular point, which I want to say the last time we saw Nanashi wasn't that long ago, but it was when we left Earth, if I'm not mistaken. So maybe like around the 20, so it's been about like 20 chapters since we've seen Nanashi. I want to say we got like one panel of Nanashi looking up and being like, holy shit, when Hachimaru did that whole thing and they bounced off the planet or whatever, when I think it was the meteor or the moon or some shit like that they had to stop. Like, that was the last time we seen Nanashi. But the way this looks, it feels as though it's been like at the very least a few months. Like, to be honest with you, like when we go to 41 and Nanashi's trying to cut the wires and can't really do it, that kind of shows that Nanashi just not that long ago became a samurai. So is it he or she? I can't remember what Nanashi wants to be called or whatever. But either way, the fact that Nanashi isn't capable of cutting through those wires, again, maybe a few months have passed. Obviously, Hachimaru has grown a lot. His tire changed, even though that doesn't really reference anything regarding time passing. But, you know, some time has had to have passed, right? They went through a couple different missions. The whole Benkei stuff, that must have lasted a little bit of time. So it's probably been a few months at the very least, which gives enough time for Nanashi to get off of the planet and figure things out of like, okay, I want to be a samurai, whatever. But either way, 40 alone, great chapter. But then 41... whoo! Because 41 starts off with Nanashi saying, hey, I got this power, where, as ironic and sad as it is, like, because, you know, obviously nobody ever would pay no mind, and it was basically like Nanashi was invisible. Now the presence can be completely blocked due to this ability. So we get a little bit of a setup for that, leading into other things going on, which Ata yet again. And these are the things where I'm like back and forth, like, oh man, they're rushing it for cancellation. Oh no, well, there's still a lot of things here, because we see Ata talking to his boss, which we still haven't gotten anything with the boss yet, right? And asking, can I now get Mandela's box's coordinates? And boss is like, I bet, here we go. And big bombshells right there, that which also makes me question so many things. There's so much world building that is still even going. Like the planet, I think it was called Planet Thorn, that is actually the Mandela's box, is actually the planet itself is the box, and the planet itself was Mio's locker ball. So this is God's locker ball essentially, but also this is Mandela's box. And Ata was there before, training with Daruma back in the day, but also this is Daruma's birth planet. So the build up and setup there is like, well, what does this mean that Daruma was born there? Is it just nothing? Like, hey, Daruma was born there, or is there more to it? Is this something? Because you got to think, go back to the beginning of the chapter with Daruma and his teacher, like, you know, they're looking for the box and the keys, and this is a big ongoing journey. They were born there. Was it Fudo Mio did that on purpose? So a lot of questions. It's like there's more setup as things are going really quick at the same time. Like now Ata has the coordinates to the box. Like, again, something that feels endgame shit. And I ain't gonna lie, props to Anne, because a lot of people shitting on Anne. Oh, she's just this little scaredy cat girl, you know, opposed to, despite the fact that Kishimoto said, I want to say he said at some given point, or somebody in Jump said that this is more of like going to be a progressive manga. And if you think about it, with the whole Nanashi being kind of like genderless, I want to say, or a guy that is a girl, or a girl that's a guy, whatever the heck it may be. And a lot of people shitted on, saying like, oh, it's just, oh, in the back praying for your samurai. Shorty tries to grab Ata's sword, and Ata's like, yo, you can't unsheath that, and then starts choking the shit out of her. And I'm like, what the fuck? Like, yo, this is crazy. But props to Anne, and again, just showcasing she's not just a, yeah, you could argue she's a damsel in distress, but she's trying anything. Like, give me your goddamn sword. And Ata, he's a bad man. And of course we see again the brothers charging up, all that jazz. And the part of the chapter that really was deep, and I loved it and appreciated it, and this is why I've started to really get attached to these characters. Like, we're only 41 chapters in, and I really care for Hachimaru as a character. I care for Anne. I love seeing Nanashi again. When Nanashi and Hachimaru have that conversation, and, you know, Nanashi's trying to break down, which they threw like one joke. The whole chapter, as dark as it is, has one joke when Nanashi's like, oh shit, I came to save you and you're in your underwear. And Hachimaru's like, what do you mean? And then, you know, breaking down like, remember you told me when you don't have your sword or anything, you're basically without pants. So little funny joke there, which we desperately needed. That's one thing you could argue that is a flaw in all this, that there is not a single drop of comedy almost. The comedy is very, very, very scarce in any of this, and maybe you could argue that's one of the reasons why the Japanese readers aren't jumping on it immediately. Like something like Eden Zero, the creator of Fairy Tail's new work, one of the things that is making it successful and blowing up and everything is because not only it has all this science fiction, which oddly enough Eden Zero is just like Samurai 8 in terms of the sci-fi action adventure shit, which is really weird, whatever, but it has a lot of comedy shit. This one is straightforward, a very serious story. So when you get even a little joke like Hachimaru, what are you doing in your underwear, I appreciate it. Like, yeah, let me breathe for that 1 second. And then like I said earlier, Nanashi trying to break the wires, can't break them, which again probably shows that Nanashi just became a samurai not that long ago. And one of the things when Nanashi says, "You're Fudo Myo to me," and it goes back to the dialogue that Fudo Myo had with Hachimaru where he's breaking down, like, basically, to put it very simple without me having to give you like a 5-hour explanation of all this shit, is perception is reality. So because Nanashi looks at Hachimaru as, you're my savior, you're the reason why I became a samurai, you changed my life, you're like God to me, you can be whatever based on perception. Whatever you put your mind to, you can become that shit. To put it very simple, because Fudo Myo blew me away with like all the intricacies of all the vagueness of what he was saying and shit like that. And that right there was beautiful moment. Loved it. Absolutely adored the character development that Nanashi's had off screen. I would love to see, if this series continues, some of those adventures and how Nanashi got to this particular point. And right there, that activates something for Hachimaru where he's like, oh, I get it now. I can be what I want to be. I can do it. It's all right here. And Hachimaru starts basically like disintegrating or melting down and turns into a locker ball. He's like, I'm going to be whatever I want to be, dead or alive. And the chapter ends off where they're trying to put these boxes, you know, the brothers, and they're not filling up, which means that more than likely Hachimaru, with what happened with Nanashi, because he got loose from the wires, is probably disrupting that. Maybe we'll get some action next chapter of Hachimaru just coming through and bodying all the brothers. I don't know. This was insane. Like, honestly, as I've said throughout this video, this feels like the manga's ending, which is really sad if it does end. I ain't gonna lie, I'm gonna be heartbroken. Like, I'm gonna be very, very disappointed because it's such a great series. We're 41 chapters in. It feels like we're 400 chapters in, but it's so freaking good. I mean, I don't know what part I liked more between the tragedy of Ata, you know, kidnapping all of them, chopping Hachimaru down, Nanashi's triumph and becoming a samurai and coming to rescue Hachimaru, and like, there's just so much about this manga. I love this series, and creator of Naruto, even if it got canceled tomorrow, I mean, don't get me wrong, I'd be really, really upset about that, but it just shows his writing chops have gotten 10 times better. What he's done in 41 chapters, like, insane. Curious what you guys think about this though. How do you feel about all that's going down with Samurai 8? What do you think about Ata tricking Daruma and Hagamichi or Hanamichi, whichever way you say it? I can't remember. How do you feel about that? What do you think about Nanashi becoming a samurai? How do you feel about what happened with Hachimaru at the end, him basically turning back into like a locker ball and getting out of the wires? What do you think about Anne? So many questions. And do you think that the series is about to get canceled and they're rushing it, or you think that Kishimoto's just banging shit out, making it as hype as he possibly can, and then when we get to the next arc, it's going to be like a big reset in a way, and maybe it'll bring a lot of fans aboard? I hate to say it again. I hate to come into this video and say it again, but chapter 42 of Samurai 8, The Tale of Hachimaru, aka the latest and newest manga from the creator of Naruto, Masashi Kishimoto, it just screams either one of two things. Either it's ending or it's getting some sort of, not reboot, but basically a reset, because this chapter 42 of Samurai 8 is very reminiscent of the ending of the Naruto manga. Fudo Myo Hagoromo, the transformation, like, there's so much of this chapter and the feel and how quickly things are going, and the fact that Ata has felt like he's been built up to be like a somewhat of an endgame boss, and the fact that like things is falling apart, like he's on some Darth Vader shit, and Kala is essentially, you know, the Dark Emperor. Like, there's so many things that this chapter felt like man, I really hope it's not the case, but it's hard for me when I've seen time and time again Shonen Jump cancel manga after manga to completely, you know, just throw out of my mind the possibility of Samurai 8 ending, because it's not looking good despite the quality, because quality is woo, but man, it seems like dark times for Samurai 8 fans, and I hope I'm wrong. Let's talk about it.
No matter how you move, get it done. No matter how you move, get it done.
So I just got wind of the latest volume, I want to say volume 4, that was released of Samurai 8, The Tale of Hachimaru, and the sales figures that it did. I want to say in roughly 5 to 10 days, it did about 14 some odd thousand copies, which it's not great by any means, but that's been for the most part what the manga has been selling. Anywhere from 15,000 to 20,000 copies in the first week. And it's been like just kind of mid sales. Nothing terrible. Like there's a series I saw that just did 5,000 on its latest volume. Less than 5,000, like 4,000. So it's not horrible. That series will probably get the axe before Samurai 8, but it's not stellar either. Like I won't deny. I want to say even by that point, Black Clover was doing better sales than Samurai 8. My Hero Academia, Jujutsu Kaisen, every series that I could think of right now is doing better than what Samurai 8 is doing, but it's consistently staying there. So, and at the end of the day, it does have the name, creator of Naruto, Masashi Kishimoto, attached to it, and on top of all of that, which is what I deem the most important, it's a quality work. It had a lot of world building that put people off in the beginning because Masashi Kishimoto wanted, instead of having to get like, 200 chapters to get that feel of feeling like you're in some big end game, he wanted to do that when we're 40 chapters in. And that's what it really feels like some end game shit very early on. You could argue, whoa, the pacing is ridiculous, but then if it goes too slow, people are going to say this, that, and the third. So it was a sticky situation, and I feel as though Masashi Kishimoto has done the best to make this manga feel as grand as possible, as quickly as possible. And boy, this chapter, I'm not gonna lie, while yes, I have my critiques in terms of the pacing, in terms of like, whoa, what the hell, this feels like the end of Naruto happening in 40 chapters, but it was freaking incredible, because it starts off with the Hachimaru brother clones are all there, and instead of them absorbing Hachimaru, they're the ones getting absorbed into this whole cube thing, which again, it feels a little complex there, like, whoa, the reverse, what the heck is going on? And then we get this incredibly drawn panel of Hachimaru as he's transcending to the Fudo Myo dimension, which is basically like a godly dimension, like the epicenter of it all. Think like Matrix, getting to the core of it all. That's kind of what I felt as though, and that's what I could partially attribute some of the feeling that I get of Samurai 8, almost like the damn Matrix. And he goes to meet Fudo Myo, and Hachimaru basically says, so I'm a Fudo Myo now. So basically, Hachimaru has kind of become a god in a way at this particular point, which is one big thing that already tells me, like, either we're gonna have a major reset or something, or this is ending. Because how do you continue a story unless you're gonna just make this shit Gurren Lagann type of scale battles, or Dragon Ball Super, end of Super type of scale battles where it's just ridiculous very quickly and very early on? Because dude is already like like imagine Hagoromo, which this was very reminiscent of it. I'm not gonna deny it at all. It feels as though Kishimoto was heavily inspired by his own work, because that's what it felt like when Hagoromo gave Naruto and Sasuke that choice and gave him the 6 paths choice and all of that shit. That's what it feels as though is happening with Hachimaru. But essentially, he's like, yeah, you understand everything now. Now, mind you, he was giving it to him in complex terms, and Hachimaru was like, so to sum it up, yeah, my friend made me realize something, Nanashi, which once again, shout outs to Nanashi. I love Nanashi. Awesome character, great character. I love seeing it. But Nanashi helped that development to get to that point of where Hachimaru realizes certain things and understands about Anne's brother, which it seems as though that relationship set up with what Goku did, which is still kind of like, Goku, what really did you do other than kind of like seemingly flirt with Anne a little bit here or there? But it made Hachimaru think deeply about his relationship with Anne, about her brother, and the impact of him dying had, and how when people pass, they don't really pass. And for me, it started hitting me in a sentimental point, and this is where I start getting a little bit of personal attachment even further to the series, where they say like the person is always going to be there no matter what. You carry on what they were, essentially, and that really hit close to home for me. So when Hachimaru is talking to Fudo Myo about like Anne's brother and him passing and the impact that it had, that's an interesting thing. I really couldn't tell you another instance in manga that somebody who's dating a girl and her brother that passed, and him having a really strong bond and connection with the girl, so her brother made him realize something, or she made him, like, the whole thing essentially is a little bit unique. I like it. I like that Masashi Kishimoto decided this time around to really dig deep in the romance department and include it into the plot, and not just be like this sub, relic little thing, that quaint relic of like it's actually very important, because Hachimaru is essentially saying, like, despite me losing my body, I am still here. I will still be here. And Fudomyo is like, yo, you completed the process. You are officially a Fudomyo, which is, again, essentially like, you're a god, which I gotta keep saying it. It feels so like this is the end. Because even at that point, like, not just, okay, you're a Fudomyo, but now he even tells Hachimaru, you're connected to everything. So if Hachimaru is connected to everything, how can you stop him? Like, if Fudomyo is like the grandioso of all this shit, and Hachimaru has just basically taken his place, it's just like, really, like, where do you go from here? Like, how much further? Like, I mean, at the end of the day, Fudomyo did say essentially he's not God. He just kind of came to this realm and created it. Or he came to this universe, or he created the universe itself, but he himself is not God. So there's certain circumstances that you could say, well, there's still more out there if he just created what we're in right now, but there's more there from wherever he came from. So there's that argument there. And also, again, it could be that once a lot of this ends, Hachimaru could lose that connection, but still have the understanding and the lesson and the value of, like, what things are essentially in the universe and who he is, and how losing somebody doesn't necessarily mean that they're gone for good. And I ain't gonna lie, it was kind of epic when the clones of Hachimaru essentially start turning with white hair, and Ata's like, what the hell's going on? And for a minute there, for me, again, I see some of the influence when they all start jumping Ata, because it's like, first one of them slashes Ata's arm off, which I want to say that was Hachimaru himself, and then they like start jumping him. It reminded me of Shadow Clones. I don't know if Kishimoto was just with, again, Naruto on the brain with a lot of this shit, because it felt like it was Shadow Clone Jutsu when they all started jumping Ata, and in typical fashion of the Shadow Clones, they all got dusted off. He used his black blade to turn them back into cube boxes, which, again, the complex stuff of, like, people probably a little lost saying, wait, so there was locker balls, but in this dimension there are cube boxes. Like, Kishimoto, we already have enough issues with people saying this shit is complex. Please, fam, stop making it more than it already is. That's one thing I'll throw in there at this point, just because it's like, is it over? If he already knows that it's over and he's just like, fuck it, I don't give a shit, just throw whatever, let's do it, then fine. But if not, slow down with adding extra elements or extra details of shit that is like, Then Kala, which Kala is one of the things that still makes me feel like, okay, he's waiting in the wings, he's the big boss. If he's not defeated yet, then he's the end game. And if we get to Kala at some given point, that's when, like, I know, okay, it's really over. If we face Kala at any given point within the next 5 chapters, I'm calling it Samurai 8 is done. There's no more further. Like, Kala's supposed to be the big boss that they've been trying to take down forever. He had Ata, convert eventually and follow his lead and shit like that. But if we see Kala very soon, it's a wrap. Because Kala gives the order to Ata, abandon the plan, get the hell out of there, take the clone cubes and all of that shit. So I'm like, if Kala's telling him to abandon the plan, then where are we going with this? Like, is Ata gonna try to, like, at first he's like, on some, I'll just kill all of you, I don't give a shit. And I'm like, Ata, you bad man. And then once again, which I feel as though, okay, like, it's going really quick, when Ata and Hachimaru clash, and the black blade, he does a silent slash that's headed towards Anne, and then he throws himself, Hachimaru throws himself to, save Anne, and he takes a blast, which is basically going to decompartmentalize him yet again into that, ball state or cube state or whatever the heck you want to call it, which is like, it feels as though that was something that was already reused when Hachimaru just last chapter turned into the cube by realizing, what he needed to do and shit like that. So it feels as though this is too quick, too close to the last time that he just dematerialized, essentially. So I wasn't too fond of it. I thought it was great to just show how Hachimaru told Anne very early on, I would die for you, I would do anything, and he's living up to it because he took that head on from Ata, which, again, despite the heroism, because at the end of the chapter, his heroism goes up to 8, and we'll talk about that in a second, but it still shows that, like, he's nowhere near ready to be, like, this legendary warrior. Like, he attacked Ata, went at it with him, and yeah, Ata used the dirty trick, but I'd still say Ata would kick his ass. It's just that he came back as like a Fudo Myo and has all this extra buffs and power up and shit like that. But I still think that Ata's way above him. So there's still a lot of room for growth and still a lot of stuff that can be done if we move forward, especially once again with Kala even waiting in the wings. And that ending panel, 100% yet again inspired from Naruto. I can't remember if it was exclusive to the anime or I want to say it was in the manga as well, where you see Hachimaru's dad and Anne's brother all on top, like floating like angels on top of the box that is Hachimaru, and then it goes into that sideways 8, which is infinite, and you know, him saying, I'm going to do it, I'm going to save you, to Anne and shit like that. And first of all, very inspired by Naruto yet again, which is what makes me feel as though this whole chapter felt like end of Naruto manga stuff. But with that being said, you got to think, well, if he's using that as like, let's just say a launch pad to get to the next point, that would be fine. Like, it's like, okay, you know, he wants to, in a way, if you think about it in this logic, he's using inspiration of the end of his last manga for the end of what could potentially be the first big major arc of all of this stuff. Moving forward, then the story becomes fresh and new. Like, okay, I surpassed the storytelling that I did at Naruto, and now I'm doing something different. But if it ends like this, then it's like, you're reusing a lot of stuff from the Naruto story to wrap this whole bad boy up. And it's like, I don't know how I feel about that. Like, overall, the chapter, yet again, crazy, very action-packed, very, not even just action-packed, very deep and complex. The conversation with Fudomyo and Hachimaru understanding about life, and a lot of grand stuff, him saving Anne yet again, Ata having to abandon the mission, a lot of great things, but it does feel extremely fast-paced, and if it's a big possibility this series is wrapping up soon, and that really sucks. We have no confirmation yet. We got a confirmation that Volume 5 comes out in May, so there's nothing saying, hey, it's ending, but at the rate it's going, I don't know. Curious what you guys think about this, though. How did you feel about this latest chapter? Where do you think the story is going from here? Do you think that it is ending? Did this chapter yet again scream at you, this bad boy's wrapping up? Or do you feel as though this is just set up for the next thing to come? I mean, I hate to be like a pessimist, but that's just what I feel. Any overall thoughts and expectations for Samurai 8, The Tale of Hachimaru, with chapter 43 and beyond? I can't wait to see where this shit goes. Whether it stays or ends, it's been a freaking hell of a ride already. So a little shy of a year, we have to say goodbye to Samurai 8, The Tale of Hachimaru, aka the latest creation, the latest manga, the latest work from the creator of Naruto, Masashi Kishimoto. Boy, is it bittersweet, but definitely way more bitter. Let's get into it.
I say we gonna do what we do, no matter how you move, make your move.
That's how it be, though.
Now, I'm not gonna lie, I'm not gonna come in here and hype the living crap out of this chapter, because it's clear as they had this man put probably like 5 years worth of storytelling into one chapter to get to the end. Because in case you ain't here, Samurai 8 was canceled. It was it got the axe from Shonen Jump, so to speak, due to not doing well in sales and rankings and all that jazz. You know, we've talked about this on numerous occasions, the main reasons being it was too complicated for people. Basically, this probably would have done better in a more mature magazine, like a seinen magazine or something like that, because it was just too much for Shonen Jump readers, too much explanations, too much world building, too much, just a lot of stuff for people to really take in. So Samurai 8 got the axe, and you know, it is what it is. It's sad as hell. For me, I am shocked, to be honest with you, to a certain degree, at how sad I really feel about this series ending, because, you know, it's only 43 chapters, but I think one of the things on a more personal standpoint, if I could just talk for a second about it, Samurai 8 came into my life in a time of uncertainty. A lot of things was going on around that time, and it felt like a fresh start for not only myself, but, you know, what I do here on YouTube. I was like, okay, you know, the creator of Naruto's back. I'm back. Let's do it. So, you know, I always felt like as life kept on throwing me, you know, hooks and left hook, right hook, left hook, right hook, I thought after a certain point in my journey that I'd be talking about this series for the long haul. I was really excited to see a fresh new idea, talk about it weekly. Of course, it's from the same creator of one of my favorite series, Naruto. So to see it go out like this, where, you know, this chapter, there was just so much where the man did a damn time skip in the midst of all this shit just to wrap everything up. it's sad. I mean, in a nutshell, Hachimaru was going at it against Ata. Ata was, of course, trying to do in, and I couldn't even explain to you that the amount of crazy shit that happened in this chapter between Hachimaru having space and time changed solely around him. So him and Anne kind of look like they grew a bit in this chapter, which is probably what the original character designs was going to be, assuming it had like a Samurai 8 Shippuden type of deal if it would have lasted the long haul. We've seen character designs for characters that we never even seen before, which is very reminiscent of a lot of series that get axed, like Hungry Joker, the original manga before Black Clover for that author. They had shown like a whole bunch of villains and stuff that we never even got to see yet, and he did the same thing in Samurai 8. There was like a page of like really sick looking designs, and I'm like, well, who the hell are these people? We'll never know. And it's just sad as hell. Like, we had a time skip in this shit. We had villains and characters show up that we never even seen or heard of before, just, you know, sick designs. We find out in this one that Hachimaru essentially was Pandora's box all along, because it was what, Mandala's box and then Pandora's box. Hachimaru was Pandora's box all along, which is very, very interesting plot twist if it was able to be, you know, done properly. Because again, it's just like this chapter just screams out what Shonen Jump did is they took potential and they wasted it. So they turned Samurai 8 into wasted potential essentially, because there was just so much greatness to this. I mean, one of the moments that for me on a personal level, again, because for whatever reason I feel just so personally attached to the series, is the goodbye between Hachimaru and Anne. That right there was hard. That was hard for me to get through, just because it just, you know, obviously if you know about some of the stuff that I've went through the last few months, seeing Hachimaru and Anne having to say goodbye, and Anne, you know, telling Hachimaru, like, you know, what about the promise you made me? I'm gonna be lonely. And Hachimaru saying, you know, I'll always be around protecting you. I'll basically be waves in the universe. It was really tough. It was really tough to get through that with, you know, everything with their relationship, which it's sad because that even was rushed. Like, we had the little thing go on with Goku basically being like a kind of love triangle in a sense, just to push Hachimaru and Anne to realize their feelings for each other and get to a deeper level beyond just like, hey, you're the princess, hey, you're my savior, my warrior. So to see where they're at now, yeah, it feels a little bit like, whoa, this is rushed. But I mean, at the end of the day, you just see the potential there. You see the potential there. I mean, even in this chapter, you see it goes that Hachimaru, all of a sudden, all his stats are infinite, which kind of makes sense with the Samurai 8. Now, there's so many different meanings that you could take the 8 being, you know, you twist it sideways and it's infinite. So it's like, I guess you could argue it's called Samurai Infinite. If you think about it, you know, the design of Hachimaru and Anne after the little time skip look thingy where Hachimaru has the samurai armor and shit, that was fire. And I remember Kishimoto drawing something very similar for one of the cover pages back in the day for Naruto. It was like Sasuke and Naruto had like some armor and shit. I think Kishimoto's had some type of fascination with samurai looks and just the samurai in general for a while. I mean, there was even some samurai in the Naruto series. So that was kind of cool. Again, all of it just felt like, wow. You know, I hate it that I can't come in here and 100% praise it, just because it's like, they wedged in years of content into one chapter to wrap it all up, and it's like, what the hell? And you know, the goodbye, like going back to that, seeing Hachimaru, he manned up. And you know, one of the things that I look at the story from start to finish, and you know, you see where Hachimaru started out as a sickly little boy that was essentially trapped in his own body, and while yeah, he got free when he committed seppuku, and you know, everything transpired to lead into the story, he still was always trapped in one thing or another. And the fact that he is now one with the universe, he became a part of the H particles, he is essentially the new Fudo Myo, he's finally free. So even though, you know, you start in a messed up situation, you start where, you know, you feel like, why was I dealt this hand? You could always make it out of whatever situation you're in if you put your mind to it and give it your all. And that's, I mean, that's one of the things about Shonen Jump, and that's one of the things that Samurai 8 embodied is, give it your all and you can make it out or whatever. So very, very sad situation. It was interesting at the end, when it was all said and done, and Hachimaru basically turned into the box, and Hachimaru was gone, to see that the story would have moved forward, or it would have ended, shall I say, whichever way they would have gone with it, with Anne essentially becoming seemingly the samurai. So she went from princess to samurai, which I want to say Kishimoto at some point did kind of say that this would be a progressive story, and that is very progressive, but it doesn't feel forced, like opposed to a lot of the shit that you get like in Hollywood movies and stuff, where it feels like it's driving down your throat, like woman empowerment, we're in the Me Too movement, all of that shit. That didn't feel like it at all. It felt like a strong woman that went through some shit. She lost the love of her life, and she's picking up the mantle and carrying it forward and keeping it going. So when she's wearing the big long white kimono or whatever, and putting on the samurai sword on her back and saying, come on, let's keep going, let's keep with the journey and shit like that, it didn't feel forced. It felt like truly the way, if you're gonna do something in a progressive standpoint when it comes to like making women the forefront and showing the strength of women, that's how you do it. And they did an incredible job. Like for what he could do with one chapter to wrap up years of storytelling he had planned, it was great. I enjoyed it. I mean, obviously I would have liked to have the story keep going, but it's all done. So yeah, for one final hoorah for Samurai 8 to wrap everything up, Kala getting basically not destroyed, but his plans were foiled, Ata taking the L. But the biggest thing of it all was really just Hachimaru. Like, this was the tale of Hachimaru, and maybe, who knows, if Kishimoto wanted to keep writing it, he would have wrote as Anne being the main protagonist moving forward, and it would have been Samurai 8, the tale of Anne, or something like that. But I don't think, like, for a lot of people that are holding out with hope, like maybe it'll continue now with Anne, no, or even it getting animated, as much as I would love for this to get animated, the main reason why it's gone is due to its failure to perform, volume wise and shit like that. So they're not going to do any of that. If they did, I would go crazy. I'd be excited in hell, but I don't see it happening. But curious what you guys thought about the ending of Samurai 8, how it all went out. How did you feel about the whole time skip look for Anne and Hachimaru? What do you think about the goodbye that Hachimaru had to go away and break their promise essentially of not being around, even though he still will be protecting her because he's always going to be there for you? I like how, thinking back real quick, it was leading up, there was some foreshadowing with constantly going back to Anne's brother that passed away and how he's still there, and even if you're gone, you're still there. I think that was Hachimaru learning that for himself to be able to explain it to Anne, of him always being there. And your overall thoughts of Samurai 8, The Tale of Hachimaru. It was a short-lived ride, but boy was it a journey that I don't think I'm ever gonna forget. This one really hit close to home just because of stuff that I've dealt with in my personal life. And thank you, Masashi Kishimoto. And whatever you're gonna do next, whether you're going back to Boruto, starting a Naruto sequel of some sorts, or a brand new story, or you want to retire, I support your decision 100%, and I will be there to check it out. Just thanks for everything. And Hachimaru, keep on protecting us. Protect your princess no matter what. And do your thing. Samurai 8, The Tale of Hachimaru. It was a great ride. I freaking loved it. Have an awesome day, people.
Everything good always comes to an end. If you stab me in my back, we can never make amends. Trying to move to acceptance, hard to accept it. Mistakes like mirrors, gotta reflect it. I don't wanna fucking leave, but I gotta leave. Leave the maybes to the crazies. Maybe one day there I go, admitting something in a subtle way. No more copies, leave without a trace. Last time, I'ma say last time. Moving on to the future, leave the memories as a pastime. Memories always feel like the worst. Letting all the past, leave it in a hearse. Sometimes I wanna lie, but I don't. Why lie when truthfully you get caught in it? Then usually it's all off and shit, uncalled for shit. Now I'm off the shit. Maybe lately what I've been facing got me crazy. No, I can't take it. Maybe